Time travel became Yang Guo's son, and he also brought time travel panels. Everyone else takes their harem to walk around the heavens, why is there an old Taoist around me? 100 years later. Lao Zhang can't do it. Can you come with me? Invincible, after all these years, isn't it boring? Are you talking about the heavens? Maybe I can still meet Miss Guo. Your grandfather's Lao Zhang, you're over 100 years old and still want to be my uncle. Believe it or not, I'll beat you up. Wait a moment, there are many enemies coming, they're a bit strong. This person's martial arts skills are not inferior to ours, are they? Let me remind you, Emperor Shutian's phoenix blood has been drained by your beating. I don't know how many years have passed. Lao Yang, be careful, Hongjuan's martial arts are not inferior to ours. Keywords of the novel. I, the son of Yang Guo, abducted Zhang Sanfeng to travel through the heavens without a pop-up window. I, the son of Yang Guo, abducted Zhang Sanfeng to travel through the heavens. Complete collection download of TXT. I, the son of Yang Guo, abducted Zhang Sanfeng to travel through the heavens. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Begins with a complete set of melancholic poems. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1 begins with a complete set of melancholic poems. I'll be on the shelves tomorrow. In the darkness, Yang Guo let out the sound of sudden death of social animals. Hey, didn't I die? Yang Guo, who had worked overtime for 12 days and died suddenly the day before the product was launched, suddenly realized that a dead person would not have any thinking. From darkness to light in his sight, Yang Guo seemed to have crawled out through an extremely narrow channel, and then he noticed a group of huge faces smiling at him, saying things he didn't understand. He opened his mouth to ask, only to find a burst of crying. I'm a baby now. What is this? Yang Guo blinked his eyes, only to find a semi-transparent screen in front of him. Name. Yang Guo. Age. 0 skill. None. Big event. With a cry, you were born. Wow. Yang Guo was overjoyed. This is the legendary rebirth, this is the legendary system. Ha ha ha, heaven doesn't give birth to me, Yang Guo. Traveling through eternity is like a long night. Yang Guo danced happily, and a group of adults around him laughed when they saw the baby laughing happily. Yang Guo ignored them and couldn't understand what they were saying. He was still imagining his invincible future, without even paying attention to the adults walking out one after another. The baby's mind is not yet fully developed, and after not thinking for long, he feels a drowsiness and wants to sleep. The last scene in Yang Guo's consciousness was a snow-white mass that occupied his entire gaze and was even larger than his face, blocking his mouth. So sweet. Among the steep peaks of Mount Zhongnan, there are two figures chasing in front and behind. The two of them were incredibly fast, even on such a steep mountain road, they were faster than galloping horses. Yang Guo. Little rabbit, stop me. The figure behind suddenly stopped drinking, causing the entire mountain and valley to rumble. The young man running ahead is Yang Guo, who was born in this world 16 years ago. Perhaps it was because in his previous life, he had been trapped in a mine for too long. However, in this life, his parents are actually world-renowned, divine eagle heroes. 1 year after the Huashan debate, Xiaolongnu became pregnant, and in October, Yang Guo was born. Yang Guo felt that he had been too unconventional in the first half of his life, and in the end, Huashan Luanjian was awarded the title of West Crazy again. He felt that his gains could not last long and hoped that his son could behave more properly, so he named his son Guo. But obviously, his son did not meet his expectations. Upon hearing Yang Guo drinking loudly behind him, Yang Guo didn't stop for a moment and shouted, "Dad, I advise you not to curse me like that. From a genetic perspective, it's not good for you." Yang Guo majored in the martial arts of the ancient tomb sect, with a graceful figure like an immortal. Yang Guo practiced swordsmanship and underwater palms, and his lower body was as stable as rooting. However, he couldn't catch up with his 16-year-old son in short-distance lightness skills. You think I can't catch up with you, right? Yang Guo's face was full of anger, and he reached out to grab it in the air. A fist-sized rock jumped into his hand and said, "You probably don't know how Mongolian Xuanming died back then." Before he could finish speaking, Yang Guo felt a hurricane blowing behind him, and the strong wind alone had already made his figure unstable. Yang Guo was shocked and lost his composure. He kicked sideways, then lowered his body and turned half a circle, narrowly avoiding the flying stone. Boom! The flying stone crashed into the mountain wall like a shell, causing a large area of the wall to crack and turn into pieces of stone falling down. Yang Guo took advantage of this time to catch up and waved his sleeve to tap the Yang Guo acupoint. Run, run again. Yang Guo's face looked particularly fierce. Lao Yang, you're really not afraid that our Yang family will become the last emperor? Yang Guo had not yet regained his senses from the flying stone, and was covered in cold sweat from fear. Little bunny, if I don't kill you, I'm afraid I'll make you angry first. Yang Guo gritted his teeth and said, "You're not going to practice swordsmanship in the mountain flood, right? You're lying to Uncle Jiao to steal roasted chicken, right? I'm giving Uncle Jiao medicine, right? I haven't received your old man's desperate palm, right?" As Yang Guo spoke, he waved his right sleeve and gave him a set of mesmerizing palms, causing Yang Guo to spin on the ground like a top. Oh, Dad, don't smoke, oh. Yang Guo howled while speaking hard, "How graceful and elegant the martial arts passed down by our ancient tomb master Lin are. Who can learn from your clumsy martial arts? Uncle Jiao, why is he blaming me for his gluttony? My chicken has 2 pounds of mesmerizing fragrance in its belly, and 2 pounds of mesmerizing fragrance in 1 pound and 8 tails of chicken. It's strange that it won't faint after eating it." Yang Guo has been mining for a long time in his previous life, and in this life, he has been reborn as the only child of the divine eagle heroes, particularly releasing himself. Starting from learning how to walk, the style of behavior is mainly characterized by being impulsive and focused on causing trouble. Including but not limited to plucking the feathers of the divine eagle and grilling its wings, setting fire to the site of the Chongyang palace, using a mysterious iron sword to make an iron plate for grilling, pulling out the bird's nest of the divine eagle every day to ask why it doesn't have eggs, stuffing eggs into the nest of the divine eagle and shouting to Yang Guo that the eagle uncle has children, grilling the bird in front of the divine eagle and deceiving it to eat bird meat, and so on. It's not an exaggeration, when it comes to being beaten by Yang Guo, Yang Guo has been beaten harder than Jinluan Guosher in recent years. The divine eagle has been constantly expressing its desire to return to the sword tomb to live since a few years ago. It has lived for decades or hundreds of years, but has not encountered as many crises as in the past decade or so. It was Yang Guo who begged it several times to stay. Today, Yang Guo forced Yang Guo to practice the dark iron sword technique under the waterfall, with the divine eagle as the supervisor. However, Yang Guo stuffed all the enchanting incense he had obtained from somewhere into the roasted chicken belly, tricked the divine eagle into eating it, and let him down. He ran out to play on his own, which led to the father-son chase that happened just now. The little bunny knows no good or bad. As the old saying goes, when the father saw his son still alive, he pulled out 7 wolves. Yang Guo's sleeve was much more ruthless than the 7 wolves when he swung it. With one move of worrying about the sky and another move of going against the tide, Yang Guo's whole body swelled up. Your father can still hurt you. What level of grandfather Lin? If she comes back to life, I'm afraid she won't be enough for your father to fight with one hand. What level of martial arts is that of Elder Dugu? I still feel that there is no end to it, which is much less powerful than the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra and the 9E Manual. Do you want to hit someone with both hands? Yang Guo murmured softly. Yang Guo's eyes widened in fear, causing Yang Guo to swallow the latter half of the sentence and change his tone. No, Dad, your kung fu is too stupid. Back then, you were also a little white-faced wanderer in the martial arts world. When you saw Yang Guo, you missed your whole life. What about Uncle Li Macho, Aunt Lu Wushuang, Aunt Xuanming, Aunt Gong Sun Lavexi, Aunt Guo Fu? You can see that after practicing Master Dugu's martial arts, the divine eagle hero is invincible in the world, but there is only one Guo Xiang aunt who is not sensible enough for you to deceive. It can be seen that being strong or not is temporary, and being handsome or not is a lifelong matter. I'll go get you. Yang Guo kicked Yang Guo on the buttocks and said, "What's a scam? I was doing it to repay your grandfather Guo's kindness." Who knew that the little girl was young and immature? I can tell you, today you won't teach me how to practice this dark iron sword technique, so be careful. Lao Yang, you better be careful yourself first. Yang Guo, who was lying motionless on the ground, suddenly laughed with a malicious expression on his face. Yang Guo felt a warning sign approaching him, and a cold breath rose from the bottom of his heart, with his hair all standing up. 18 years ago, he was invincible in the world. Now that 18 years have passed, who can still make him feel so dangerous? There is only one person. Yang Guo turned his head stiffly and saw a little dragon girl dressed in white standing not far behind him, staring at him expressionlessly. Obviously, she didn't miss a word in the father-son conversation just now and listened to it completely. Long air. Yang Guo turned his face stiffly, feeling that his face was even more stiff than wearing the mask of Huang Yaoshi many years ago. Later, I see that you still have some confusion about the martial arts of ancient tombs. Today, I will teach you a good lesson. Xiaolongnu's voice had no ups and downs, as if it were an AI voice. Well, actually, Master Lin's martial arts are also very strong. Yang Guo tried to argue insincerely. I said no, it just doesn't work. Look at the sword. Little dragon girl didn't care about his style, her body swayed and her swords were in her hands, like lightning charging towards Yang Guo. Yang Guo dare not fight back, just turn his head and run away. Yang Guo lay on the ground, hee and straight happy. Who said little dragon girl is not jealous? He hasn't seen Guo Xiang once in the ancient tomb in these years, which can explain the problem. In fact, this is also something that Yang Guo has slowly explored over the past 16 years. In the past, this kind of situation would have happened to the legendary couple of the Condor heroes. Their husband and wife were truly in love, and their children were unexpected. When Yang Guo made a mistake and was about to be beaten up, little dragon girl not only didn't like the mother of an ordinary family to protect her, but also helped Yang Guo to chase and intercept her. The result is often that he first received 2 dog-beating batons from Yang Guo, then a whole set of Jade Maiden Pure Heart Sword, and was violently smashed by a large iron plate of the Dark Iron Sword, followed by a whole set of ecstatic palms that could not fall off even after hitting the sky for 2 or 3 hours. When it finally fell and was trapped by the bell rope, Yang Guo on the ground had been waiting for a complete set of powerful claws to summon him, all shining on his head and grabbing it. Finally, he was sealed by the magical power of his fingers, and then he used his toad technique to slap him into the waterfall. When it comes to the extent of being beaten by a martial arts master, it is probably only comparable to the legendary Seven Heroes Town's first flesh tank Lady Qian. It wasn't until Yang Guo accidentally mentioned that he had never seen Guo Xiang before that he slowly discovered the blind spot. By now, Yang Guo had been able to proficiently report the names of his old lover as before, dealing a fatal blow to him. When I saw Yang Guo in the ancient tomb, his clothes were all cut into strips, which was particularly embarrassing. He gave Yang Guo a cold glance and said, "I'll go to seclusion, little rabbit. I advise you to also go to seclusion. Don't say I'm a father, I'll bully the little." Turning his head, he walked into a tomb chamber and never showed his head again. It's terrible. Yang Guo felt a surge of urine, and now it seems that Yang Guo has really been beaten up. He quickly pulled open the panel. Name: Yang Guo. Age: 16. Skill: Old Chinese LV 75497/5600, Mongolian LV 6, 12/4800, left and right mutual combat LV 101400/infinity martial arts. Jade Maiden Heart Classic LV 82605/8000, Jade Girl Sushin Sword LV 92580/12000, Sky Luo Earth Net LV 10, 15/Infinity Beauty Fist LV 10, 45/Infinity Bird Catching Skill LV 101300/Infinity Toad Skill LV 5500/7200, Danji Shantong LV 6, 80/8000, Retrograde Meridian LV 8808/6000, The 9 Manual, Remnant, LV 9, Hard Qigong 45/1400, Easy Tendon and Bone Forging 65/Infinity, Acupoint Decoding 1200/1400, Soul Shifting Method 60/800, Chi Blocking Method 35/Infinity Major Event. Your proficiency in using the bird catching technique has increased by 5. You were attacked by the Grand Master with the Morning Palm. The 9 Manual. Hard Qigong Proficiency +5, and Retrograde Meridians Proficiency +8. You have unlocked the Great Master's Acupoint Pressing Skill. The 9 Manual. Acupoint Resolving Skill +10. You angered Yang Guo, who claimed to beat you up. Perhaps due to the soul piercing through, Yang Guo had dual souls, so there was no fourth person in the original work who could practice left and right combat, and Yang Guo easily mastered it. Over the years, he has been distracted from practicing martial arts, focusing solely on his inner strength and techniques. His strength has grown rapidly, especially his Jade Maiden Pure Heart Sword, which is second to none in the entire martial arts world. However, if he wants to challenge Yang Guo, who has been practicing martial arts for 18 years after the third Huashan swordsmanship, how about I run? Yang Guo looked at the little dragon girl who had just entered the tomb and said. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. When my kid meets a skilled worker from North Burma. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. When my kid meets a skilled worker from North Burma, well, indeed. Xiao Longnu glanced at Yang Guo and said, you practice quickly. If you go out for 3 to 5 years, maybe your father can use his 5 success forces to hit you. Don't be afraid of killing you. Mom, what are you saying? Xiaolongnu's personality is not as winding, and her speech has a somewhat groundbreaking style, almost choking Yang Guo to death. So he leaned over and pinched Xiaolongnu's shoulder to act coquettishly. Am I not proficient in martial arts yet? Not bad. Xiaolongnu has a different view of her son. Your strength is close to that of a man named Gongsun Ji over 30 years ago. If I want to kill you now, I need to use 60% of my strength. Thank you. Yang Guo's face is full of criticism. I'm really sorry, I'm the most vegetable in my family. I've embarrassed you too, the Divine Eagle heroes. However, little dragon girl is right in saying that Yang Guo practices martial arts very quickly. This panel, which he has had since birth, cannot add points or upgrade, and can only quantify the skills and martial arts data he has mastered. This panel initially only had 4 columns, and since Yang Guo started learning martial arts, there has been an additional skill column for martial arts. Although we cannot add points, victory lies in constancy. In the record of major events, every time he learns, or uses, martial arts, he can increase his proficiency. When his parents provide him with additional guidance, the big event record will show, being taught by the Great Master, adding an additional bonus. Of course, in the record of major events, the only thing that works is the first time every day, and it's useless if there are too many. Nevertheless, relying solely on this constant increase in proficiency ability is already far superior to others. This is also the reason why Yang Guo was able to achieve rapid growth in strength while also causing Yang Guo to act recklessly. Even the most brilliant great master cannot grow steadily every time. Perhaps this time he has occasional insights and suddenly grows a lot, or perhaps the next few decades will not yield new insights. But as long as Yang Guo learns, and uses, he can continuously improve. What people fear the most is not knowing how much return there will be in the endless effort. If you can accurately see the progress of learning and when to upgrade, I'm afraid everyone will fall in love with learning. However, there are both advantages and disadvantages. He can only improve his martial arts through proficiency. It's no good for Zhang Wuji to directly move up to the 7th level of heaven and earth with his The 9 Yang manual. In summary, no matter how small a cheat is, it is also a cheat. As long as you dare to show your experience bar, I can also cultivate the immortal technique for you. Upon realizing this, Yang Guo felt that surpassing his father was no longer so difficult. Sitting on the cold jade bed, Yang Guo asked, "Mom, can I wander the world now? If you can't beat it, run away." The little dragon girl who had just beaten Yang Guo was obviously in a good mood. She gave her son some advice and said, "Your lightness skills are second in the world, but you can't beat them and always run away. Are you so sure?" Yang Guo was puzzled, and who is the first one? Xiaolongnu reached out and pointed at herself. "Walk slowly and speak slowly. I used to think that my biological mother was Lui Fei, which was quite enjoyable, until I later discovered that the true little dragon girl was more piercing than Lui Fei. You can leave as soon as you say, Mom. Just tell Lao Yang to wait. A few years later, when I come back, I'll beat him up and he'll be looking for teeth everywhere." Yang Guo was full of ambition. "Go ahead." Xiaolongnu hugged her son and touched Yang Guo's head with her hand, saying, "Your father and I have seen too many rivers and lakes, and we only have each other in our hearts. Therefore, we can live alone and hide in this ancient tomb. But it would be too cruel for you, a half-year-old child, to remain dark all the time. If things don't go well, come back early." Yang Guo nodded and suddenly felt like crying, not knowing what was going on. "It's not the first time I've secretly run down the mountain. Can a man cry over this? Definitely not." Yang Guo hugged his mother and forced a smile, saying, "I'll also come back with the title of the world's #1. When the time comes, our ancient tomb will be the top 3 and the top 2, scaring others to death." Last time when discussing swordsmanship in Huashan, the old mischievous child was the best in the world. But they all died. Little dragon girl still spoke like dog brother, "Those who live long are the best in the world." Got it. Listening to his mother's instructions and care in his own way, Yang Guo rushed out of the distance, afraid that if he didn't leave again, he wouldn't be able to leave. He is young and doesn't want to spend his entire life in this dark ancient tomb. But all the way, tears couldn't help but fly backwards. 16 years of parental love, where is it so easy to block it? Xiaolongnu looked at Yang Guoyuan's back and whispered, "It's clearly what you want to instruct, why don't you say it yourself?" Yang Guo's voice came from the tomb chamber, "This little brat can't learn anything, why not let him go out and explore? I'm asking why you didn't come out in person." Xiaolongnu likes to be more serious, "Are you afraid that I will still chop you after coming out?" "No, it's already done this time. I'm afraid I can't help but beat him." Yang Guo gritted his teeth and said, "Little rabbit, you're waiting for me. No matter what level you're at next time you come back, I'll beat you with 70%, no, 80% of my strength." Yang Guo didn't know how his own father was beating him, he was planning where to go outside. "It was only after descending Zhongnan Mountain that I realized that for the previous 16 years of life, the surroundings around Zhongnan Mountain were everything, and I didn't know where to go for a moment. But apart from Mount Zhongnan, Yang Guo's most familiar place is undoubtedly the Xianyang Sword Tomb." So Yang Guo headed eastward, preparing to go to the Sword Tomb and embezzle the 4-foot green sword that Duguqiu defeated. The story of seeking defeat through solitude is passed down in my family. The 2 swords of the gentleman and lady were combined to form the heavenly sword. Yang Guo still uses 2 ordinary long swords, which is when he needs a precious sword. He doesn't ride a horse either, relying on his excellent lightness skills and swaying along the way, walking towards Xiang. What a strong bloody smell. After walking for less than a month, Yang Guo was about to leave the boundaries of Shaanxi. From a distance, he looked like a village with houses and fields. He was about to go and ask for water to drink, but he smelled a bloody smell. The closer he was to the village, the stronger the bloody smell. At the same time, there were two pairs of eyes staring at him inside the houses in the village. Taoist, someone has arrived. I see it, I don't know which chick came here. There are two people inside the house, one dressed in fur and sheep felt, and the other dressed as a Taoist. Under their feet were 4 or 5 naked women's corpses, their eyes still filled with fear. Taoist, I heard that there are many talented people in the Central Plains martial arts world, shouldn't there be any problem? The big fur man asked. Bolahun, you are also a brave warrior from Mongolia. Is that all you have to do? Now that the Yuan dynasty has taken over the whole world, even Guo Jing has died under my Yuan iron cavalry. What nonsense is there in the Central Plains martial arts world? They are all my Yuan's lackeys. The Taoist sneered and said, this kid looks delicate and tender, even more delicate than a young girl. If he behaves well, I can't say that the Taoist will take him as a boy and serve him day and night. He. During his speech, Yang Guo had already entered the village area, and the scenery was breathtaking. I saw countless villagers lying on the ground, some in the fields, some by the well, and some behind the courtyard wall. The only commonality is that they have all died, and even many of their limbs have been severed, indicating that they were brutally murdered before their death. Some of the blood has dried up, but because there is so much blood, it has gathered in different low-lying areas, forming small pools of blood. At this time, the world was chaotic, and Yang Guo had seen many instances of Yuan soldiers brutally killing civilians along the way. Even the Yuan soldiers he had personally killed had reached double digits, and he was no longer the same social animal as in his past life. But seeing this situation, I still feel my stomach twitching into a ball. Yang Guo frowned tightly, intending to find some dry firewood and haystacks, and set fire to them. On the one hand, to prevent these villagers from exposing their bodies in the wilderness, and on the other hand, so many dead bodies, forming a plague, is also a great thing. But when he walked into the largest courtyard in the village, he found that compared to the inside, the situation outside could even be said to be quite warm. There are dozens of corpses of women of different ages lying in the yard. His mother. Yang Guo's blood turned cold. He finally realized what it was like to see a stroke of criticism in history in his past life, and what it was like to be criticized by Grandpa Guo and old Yang in this life. What does it mean to have corpses everywhere, and what does it mean to have blood flowing into a river? I'm afraid no one knows it better than Yang Guo at this time. At this moment, 2 wild dogs appeared at the entrance of the village, running out of nowhere and attempting to bite the remaining limbs and arms on the ground. Animal. It's time to kill. Yang Guo's blood filled his pupils, whether it was for these 2 wild dogs or for the Tartars who committed such a tragedy. Let out a loud shout and raise your hand to slap these 2 wild dogs to death. Although he had never eaten snake bile, nor experienced mountain floods, waterfalls, or seawater tides, the internal power cultivated by the Jade Maiden Heart Classic was slightly weak, but that was only for Yang Guo. In fact, Yang Guo's overall strength has been certified by Little Dragon Girl to be comparable to that of the former Lord of the Desperate Valley, Gongsun. Not to mention the 2 wild dogs, he is just 2 martial arts masters. Even if he takes a palm, he may not be able to escape. Bang! Yang Guo was extremely angry in his heart and slapped him with all his might. In an instant, the sky was covered in blood mist, and the 2 wild dogs he had beaten turned into 2 puddles of meat. Swish! Just as Yang Guo was giving out his full palm and in the gap of regaining his breath, suddenly two cold waves surged like mountains and seas, hitting Yang Guo's waist with a fierce charge. This palm is extremely swift and extremely sharp, with a ruthless technique that does not drag any mud or water. It appears to be a skilled worker from northern Myanmar. Yang Guo is in a gap where the old force has passed away and the new force has not yet emerged, making it extremely difficult to avoid. Hiss. Seeing that Yang Guo was about to die here, he took a deep breath and forcefully sucked his chest and abdomen in a few inches with a bite of toad skill. At the same time, he moved horizontally in the air, deflecting his body. With two palm forces that were enough to hit the vital points, he could only sweep to the edge. Ha! A hoarse voice sounded suspicious, but then the palm strength suddenly surged by 2 feet, and the cold air was almost frosty. It caught up with Yang Guo, who was about to dodge, and hit him in the chest, abdomen, and ribs. Yang Guo's ability to inhale in the air and pull out his back with his chest in his hand was originally a superior skill in toad technique, and even the heart pounding and flesh pounding in his ecstatic palm originated from it. Unexpectedly, the palm power of the sneak attack on this person was like that of a bony gangrene, and they could still keep up. Boom! Yang Guo's chest, abdomen, and palm were blasted into the air, landing horizontally on the ground. He only felt an extremely cold internal force rush in, trying to soak his internal organs, and in an instant, his whole body was cold and bone-piercing. Cough cough. Yang Guo struggled to get up and stood against the wall. The cold had already frostbitten the meridians in his lungs, causing him to cough uncontrollably. Blood flowed out of his mouth. The young man has 2 talents. If it weren't for the Taoists' tough tactics, he would have really let you run away. At this moment, 2 people walked into the courtyard wall. One was a Mongolian man dressed in fur, and the other was a talking Taoist with a pale face and a fierce expression. His voice is extremely hoarse, and speaking is like 2 pieces of rust rubbing against each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 3 begins with a complete set of Xuanming Divine Palm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 begins with a complete set of Xuanming Divine Palm. Cough cough. Who are you? Why did you ambush me? Your Excellency, please report me to Warner and let me go. How about I offer you 1,000 taels of gold in the future? They are all in the martial arts world. Fighting and killing are boring, but it's still real gold and silver. Yang Guo stood still, secretly trying his luck to recover, trying to delay time with his mouth. Ha ha ha, procrastinate. Unexpectedly, the Taoist was extremely experienced. As soon as Yang Guo spoke, he knew what Yang Guo was up to, but he had no intention of taking the opportunity to kill him. It's useless. With the power of the Taoist's palm, the cold poison will only penetrate into the bones, getting deeper and deeper. At that time, your whole body's internal strength and blood will be frozen, and you will die in unbearable pain. Taoist, there are many dreams at night, said the Mongolian man next to him. It's okay, Baoyuohun. This kid has a lot of internal strength. Spend more time on him and let him suffer from cold poison for a while. It's also easy to deal with. The Taoist waved his hand and looked up and down at Yang Guo, with a lewd smile on his face, saying, You're actually a delicate and tender-looking kid. If you're willing to kneel on the ground and kowtow 3 heads, be a tomboy playing the flute, you can live today. Go to Nima, kneel down and kowtow to me now, and I will take you back to my dog as my son. Yang Guo saw that these 2 people had no intention of taking action at the moment, so he was happy to procrastinate and reply. He cursed at him verbally and called out for a panel in his heart. Name. Yang Guo. Big event. You were attacked by Xuanming Divine Palm, the 9-in manual. Hard Qigong proficiency +6. You are a Taoist with 100 losses. Seeing this palm technique, a name blurted out. Oh, have you ever heard of the Taoist's name? He came to understand this palm technique from the deep mountains and cold pools, and went out to seek refuge with the Yuan court, hoping to use this set of palm techniques to build a great reputation. But now that he has just emerged from the martial arts world, he has only been active in a few provinces in the north, and has engaged in activities such as rape, plunder, and extermination. However, he did not expect someone to know his name now. Humph. Yang Guo suffered a lung injury and was too lazy to talk nonsense to him. He seized the opportunity to recover. This 100-damage Taoist is not weak in strength. He can even achieve a proficiency level of +6 in hard qigong with one palm. You should know that even the desperate soul palm can only achieve +5 on him. Although it was just a play between father and son, Yang Guo used less than 30% of his strength, but at this time, Yang Guo's strength, 30%, exceeded that of ordinary so-called top-notch experts. At least not weaker than oneself at its peak. And at this moment, he was ambushed and seriously injured. Yang Guo knew that this was undoubtedly the most dangerous time in his 2 lifetimes. Taoist, you can't wait any longer, let's take action. After a while, the Mongolian Han Baoyuo Han couldn't help but urge him. It's also good. The 100-damage Taoist stared at Yang Guo, without any concealment of his desire and greed in his eyes. Kid, have you figured it out yet? Serve the Taoist well. Not only can you survive, but you can also achieve unexpected prosperity and status. When you are in the court, you will also be a prominent figure. Perhaps you may not be able to live well at this moment, but seeing the Taoist's majestic demeanor will definitely change your mind. The Taoist Bai Li burst into a lewd laugh as he spoke. He is different from his own disciples and grandchildren. Obviously, the ancestor of the Xuanming divine palm is a heavyweight among the licentious thieves, regardless of gender. Perhaps it is still 0-1 binary and can switch freely. Look, UFO. Yang Guo pointed at the top of the head of a 100-damage Taoist, and then made a loud, hissing, sound of breaking through the air. He used 2 small stones to hit the 2 people's faces with the technique of finger-flicking magic. Seeking death. The Taoist Bai Li shouted angrily and smashed the flying stones with one palm. Baoyuo Han, kill him. Roar. The Mongolian Han let out a loud roar, pulled off his fur coat, and fiercely charged towards Yang Guo. This Mongolian great Han Baoyuo Han was specially sent by the county king to follow when the 100-damage Taoist defected to the Yuan court and was highly valued. Although there is a hint of surveillance involved, it is nominally a servant who helps the 100-damage Taoist become famous. This person is a skilled expert in the county prince's mansion. Although he does not have internal strength, his brute force is extremely terrifying, and his Mongolian wrestling skills are also extremely skilled. Boom! Yang Guo tilted his head and Baoyuo Han punched the earthen wall behind him, causing it to vibrate. A huge pit was dug out on the earthen wall. Yang Guo suffered an internal injury and refused to confront him head-on. He only used the ancient tomb sect lightness skill to move around in a small area. The martial arts of the ancient tomb sect were originally elegant, coupled with the handsome faces of Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu in this episode, their temperament appeared as if they were exiled to the mortal world. He moved slowly like a leisurely stroll in the courtyard, each time only a few inches short of narrowly avoiding Baoyuo Han's attack. Baoyuo Han was full of brute force but couldn't use it, feeling suffocated in his heart, panting heavily in his mouth, like a raging beast. Yang Guo didn't take Baoyuo Han seriously. When his father killed Menggu, this ordinary Mongolian warrior was not a concern at all. But he knew that the real danger lay ahead. Go! Sure enough, as soon as Yang Guo dodged Baoyuo Han's grasp, he felt a chilly chill coming from behind him. This old man really doesn't talk about martial arts. In his 30s, an old Taoist launched a surprise attack on his teenage boy, who had already been seriously injured. He even hid behind someone else and waited for an opportunity to sneak an attack. The 100-damage Taoist slapped him with a palm, but Yang Guo didn't dare to confront him head-on. His bird hunting skill was running under his feet, gently and skillfully lifting himself up like a sparrow, flying back a few feet. Following the finger flick, the sound of hissing erupted, and from a distance, the flicking finger divine power was continuously used to harass the 100 damaged Taoist. Little beast, seek death. Yang Guo's finger flicking skill was not practiced to the point where he was frozen into ice by the Taoist priest Bailey in the air. However, the Taoist priest Bailey's heart still became angry as he continued to harass him. He let out a loud shout and clashed with Baoyuohun, blocking Yang Guo's path of movement. Yang Guo's retreat route was indeed damaged, and the 100 damaged Taoist took advantage of the opportunity to strike 2 deadly moves of the Xuanming divine palm. Yang Guo extended his hands to fight each other, with one hand pushing horizontally in a heaven and earth net style, and the other hand using the beautiful woman fist technique to strike diagonally. Although it was not a direct hard hit, he actually held on to the 100 damaged Taoist's 2 palms. Bang! 4 hands crossed, and Yang Guo took the opportunity to retreat and fly, widening the distance. Impossible! The 100 damaged Taoist looked at his hands in disbelief and said, after being hit by the Taoist's Xuanming divine palm, how could you use your internal power so smoothly? Yang Guo pursed his lips. The Xuanming divine palm is powerful, but how does it compare to lying on a cold jade bed 24 hours a day? He has already adapted to using his internal power to resist in an extremely cold environment. Although the 100 damaged Taoist's 2 palms just now injured his lung meridian, making it impossible to lift his chi for a long time in battle, the sudden burst of internal power is not a problem at all. The Taoist doesn't believe in this evil. My Xuanming divine palm is invincible in the world, and I can't even kill you, little rabbit. The 100 damaged Taoist gritted his teeth and continued to fight against Baoyuohun. Yang Guo's palm techniques made it look like a trap in the sky and earth, unable to pour water in, and he firmly resisted every palm of the 100 damaged Taoist. Sometimes, due to lung injury, I can't breathe anymore, so I adjust my angle and use my shoulders and back to resist hard. Anyway, the cold poison has already entered my body, and this 100 damaged Taoist's internal strength is not much stronger than Yang Guo's. He has hard chi skills on his body, so he can't withstand much damage. This Xuanming divine palm originally relied on yin and cold internal power to harm people, so there were not many changes in the palm technique. When it wasn't much, the complete set of Xuanming divine palm for the 100 damaged Taoist had already been completed. Looking at Yang Guo again, although his body was covered in green palm prints, he could still stand and showed no signs of being knocked down in a short period of time. His mother, this little beast, it's really his mother tough. The 100 damaged Taoist gritted his teeth and has been fighting until now. He and Yang Guo must die one by one, and today is an endless situation. Come again. After receiving the Xuanming divine palm from the Taoist, the cold poison has entered your body. The Taoist doesn't believe how long you can hold on. Let's see which one of us can carry it. Following him, he climbed up and moved his palm around, roaring towards Yang Guo. Yang Guo also complained in his heart. The 100 lost Taoist said it well. He suffered a serious internal injury to his lung meridian, and his breathing and internal breathing were not smooth. In a short period of time, he burst into a fight with each palm, barely holding on to the 100 lost Taoist. Over time, he will inevitably reveal a loophole. He doesn't escape for the same reason. Lightness skills require lifting chi and lightening the body, causing damage to the lungs. Uncontrollably, he has to stop and breathe, which not only prevents him from escaping, but also consumes his original internal breathing. It's better to turn around and fight hard from the beginning. As for the Jade Maiden Sushin sword, the most important aspect of this sword technique is the coordination of the 2 sword techniques. He has difficulty breathing and may lose coordination at some point. At that time, Xuanzhen sword and Jade Maiden sword were just 2 basic sword techniques, and how could they defeat a Taoist with 100 losses? Yang Guo couldn't use all his means and could only defend tightly with a trap like a trap. However, this 100 damaged Taoist was forced urgently, and at this moment, it was really in danger. Cough. Sure enough, Yang Guo couldn't hold on for long. After all, he didn't change his breath and coughed twice before slowing down his hands. How insightful the Taoist was. He broke Yang Guo's fist frame with one palm and hit Yang Guo's chest with the other. Click and wipe. Yang Guo's sternum was broken a few times after being hit, and he was thrown out, spitting out a large mouthful of blood in mid-air. The 100 damaged Taoist couldn't stop missing it. With a movement of his body, he followed suit and caught up, slapping Yang Guo's Dan field. Bang! Yang Guo fell heavily to the ground, losing his breath. Ha! Ha! I'm out of breath, Taoist. Do you want to chop off his head? Baoyuo Hun has no internal strength, even as a pincer tool, he is already sweating profusely. No need. The 100 damaged Taoist was also very tired. How sturdy was his head? If it were normal, either of them would chop it off with just one blow. But at this moment, he and his wife would probably have to use their knives as saws to hack and hack for half a day. But how could he show such timidity in order to maintain the demeanor of an extraordinary expert? This little beast hit me with a palm in its big hole, and it is certain that he will die. Even if his internal strength is not shallow, my palm broke through his elixir field and depleted his internal strength. He can only die in despair in the pain of the cold poison outbreak, ha ha ha. The Taoist with a cruel smile on his face smacked his lips and said, unfortunately, this little rabbit is so handsome that he couldn't serve the Taoist. Well, let's burn down this village together. Baoyuo Hun nodded and lit a fire separately from the 100 damaged Taoist. Let's continue eastward, let the entire Central Plains martial arts world know my great Yuan Tianwei and the divine power of the Taoist who has suffered countless losses. A wild desire appeared in the eyes of the Taoist Bai Li. Go east to Xiangyang and see where Huang Rong, the most beautiful woman in the world, has been for half a lifetime. Unfortunately, she did not achieve her divine skills back then. Otherwise, when I, the great Yuan, conquered Xiangyang, the Taoist would have had to taste the taste of Huang Gang leader. With a wave of his hand, he led Baoyuo Hun all the way east, and the village behind him had become a sea of fire. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. 3,000 miles chased by Xiang. At the beginning you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. 3,000 miles chased by Xiang. At the beginning, cough, cough, cough. The 100 damaged Taoist and Baoyuo Hun left, and a figure stumbled out. Yang Guo couldn't have just died like this. Seeing that things were beyond his control, he simply reversed his meridians and suffered 2 palms from the 100 damaged Taoist. On the surface, it seems that he will die in the middle of the elixir field. In fact, the hit parts are insignificant. With the hard qigong of the 9 manual, although he is still injured, he will never die. This dog is quite cautious. Yang Guo stroked his chest with his hand, trying to calm the chaotic breath. He originally intended to feign death with strong palm strength, and when the 100 damaged Taoist approached to repair his sword, he would burst into a fierce attack. If he was lucky, it was not impossible for him to die in one blow. As long as you kill the 100 damaged Taoist, that Mongolian warrior is not enough to be afraid of. Unfortunately, it seems that the qi closing method of the 9 manual is too lifelike, and the 100 lost Taoist is confident in his palm power, so he didn't check it again and directly set fire to it. There was no way to plot now, and Yang Guo dared not stand up, so he had to resist in the fire. Fortunately, his location was in a courtyard, with open surroundings, and it was difficult for flames to burn through. Otherwise, he only had 2 paths. He either stayed in the village and was burned to death, or risked his life to rush out and be killed by the 100 damaged Taoist. Taoist Bai, can you wait for me? Yang Guo clenched his fists as he watched the direction of the 100 damaged Taoist leave. He had always been a keyboard warrior with a fierce aura in his past life, and he couldn't swallow his evil breath without killing him. Besides, How could the only child of the divine eagle heroes be someone who has been beaten but not fought back? Yang Guo stumbled away from the village that had become ruins and continued eastward, preparing to find a place to recuperate. Although the cold palm of the Xuanming divine palm is powerful, the cold jade bed in the ancient tomb is not inferior. Yang Guo is not a child like Xiao Zhang Wuji who doesn't know martial arts at all. Although his injuries are severe, they are not difficult. Cough cough. If only there were a healing section. Yang Guo has a bad cough. He estimates that it will take at least 2 or 3 months to recover from the injury. If there is a healing chapter of the 9 manual, I'm afraid the recovery time will not exceed 10 days. Unfortunately, Wang Chongyang, this old pussy, was not engraved on the ancient tomb. That's right, cursing the Xuanzhen sect is an old tradition of their ancient tomb sect. When Yang Guo was young, he also spat at the portrait of Wang Chongyang. The words are divided into 2 parts. Yang Guo is recuperating in the mountains without mentioning it. On Mount Amei in western Sichuan, there was a woman carrying a broad and long sword, walking alone along the Sichuan road towards the northeast. This woman has clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes, with a very delicate appearance. Her big black eyes are as bright as stars. But his face was sorrowful, and a wave of depression couldn't help but reveal around him. Mature and youthful temperament constantly collide, making any man unable to resist falling into it at a glance. This incredibly beautiful woman is Xiang, the second daughter of Guojing. 11 years after the Battle of Mount Huashan, Kublai Khan changed the name of the Mongol Empire to Deyuan. 2 years later, the city of Xiangyang was destroyed, and the entire family of Guojing and Huangrong died in the city. Only Xiang was able to escape a disaster while traveling. Up to now, it has been 5 years, and the last point of exile in the southern Song dynasty has also been destroyed. The Yuan dynasty has become a unified dynasty occupying the entire country. Xiang avoided Mount Amei from afar, and the mountain roads in central Sichuan were steep, making it difficult for Mongolian cavalry to attack with a large army, so they were safe and sound. She just recently heard that there was a notorious bandit in the Central Plains who colluded with the officials and soldiers of the Yuan court, frequently sexually assaulting women and slaughtering the entire village. Along the way, Xiangyang was not spared. I also heard that he spoke under the city of Xiangyang, saying that it was a pity that he had not achieved his divine skills back then, otherwise he would have had to taste the taste of Huangrong. Xiang, who had originally planned to sacrifice his remaining life on Mount Amei, was furious and went out of Sichuan 3,000 miles alone, intending to take the head of the person on his neck. This is. Xiang used his lightness skills all the way and quickly arrived at the border between Shaanxi and Hubei. At this moment, in front of her was a white ground burned by the fire. Although it seemed that the fire had passed for a long time, there still seemed to be a faint smell of burning in the air that lingered for a long time. Xiang walked in cautiously and found no signs of living people, only charred broken arms and various insulted female corpses that had already begun to rot. Humph. Xiang's face became even more depressed, but in the end, he just let out a cold snort and walked out of the village. She did not delay at all. She knew that these Tartars could not be killed by her own efforts. Back then, her parents had died in the city, and she had only planned to preach and teach martial arts in Amei, leaving behind a seed of anti-Yuan. She only waited for the plan of killing dragons with a precious sword, commanding the world to take effect before cutting off the Tartars. Unfortunately, the madness of the lecherous thief this time really touched her scales, but even so, she only intends to fight quickly and decisively when she comes down the mountain. Otherwise, over time, the Yuan court will inevitably send a large army to surround her, and she will undoubtedly die. Just a short distance from the ruins of this village, as soon as I entered the mountain, I saw a young man floating down from a cliff. He wore 2 long swords on his waist. Although his clothes were torn, covered in smoky black and dried blood, his eyes were astonishingly bright. Despite this tragic situation, his temperament remained like that of a 9-day banished immortal. Even though Xiang's heart was stagnant, he couldn't help but take 2 more glances and thought to himself, is there anyone in the world who is even more handsome than him? This exiled young man is naturally Yang Guo, a personal trainee who has been healing for 2.5 months. He hid in the deep mountains nearby to heal his injuries. This time, the entry of cold poison into his body was not entirely a bad thing. No matter how powerful the cold jade bed was, it could only be outside the body. The cold poison had invaded his internal organs, and with the help of martial arts, his internal strength increased even more rapidly. Now his skill panel is marked as Jade Maiden Heart Sutra LV 87898/8000, and he is not far from breaking level 9. And he also focused on intensifying his cultivation of hard Qigong. He thought to himself that as long as he upgraded, he would have enough confidence to defeat him when encountering 100 damaged Taoist. Just as I joyfully descended the mountain, I saw a beautiful and unattractive woman. Although dressed in coarse linen, her delicate figure and skin were so beautiful that it was impossible to conceal her beauty. Yang Guo was in a good mood and floated down in front of Xiang. He smiled and said, "Beautiful woman, how do you call her?" "Make friends." Yang Guo originally planned to seduce a girl with his handsome and rebellious face, which was born out of his Yang Guo plus little dragon girl genes. It was easy to do so, especially for this kind of 30-year-old imperial sister, who is not as reserved as a little girl. Unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, he saw the woman in front of him with a pretty face covered in frost. Xiang only felt the beautiful filter in his heart shatter into powder. Although she didn't know Yang Guo, seeing Yang Guo's handsome temperament, Jin Yang's first romantic girl couldn't help but start thinking in her heart that when her older brother first left the ancient tomb, he seemed to be just a teenager, whether he was just like the boy in front of her. Unexpectedly, Yang Guo's words were just teasing. That's right, a very ordinary sentence in Yang Guo's eyes, in this era of ritual prevention, is frivolous and vulgar. His sunny smile also turned into a lewd smile in Xiang's eyes. Xiang looked coldly at Yang Guo and said, "This person is covered in smoke, fire, and blood stains. Is he the one who raped the women in the village and destroyed the village? If he acts like this, he is the lecherous thief." Yang Guo felt uncomfortable with Xiang's gaze and sneered, "What's that? It's not convenient. Goodbye, goodbye." After speaking, he turned around and was about to leave, but he couldn't help but hear the wind howling in his ear, and a palm behind him hit like a mountain-roaring tsunami. "Uncle Wachao and I, are you here again?" Yang Guo directly cursed the street. With this familiar sneak attack from behind, he wouldn't really have come to northern Myanmar, would he? However, for the past 2.5 months, he has been simulating how to deal with the sneak attack of the 100 damaged Taoist in his heart. At this moment, he is calm and composed, turning around with a gentle and skillful turn, folding his palms and pushing back, and his body is about to fly backwards with this force. "Humph, my palm embodies the essence of the heaven and earth's trap technique, with a tight defense that doesn't leak. I can retreat at least 3 zhang back to release my strength. No matter how strong your palm is, it can only become the driving force to push me further away from you. When the master combines his 2 swords, it depends on what kind of defense you use." Yang Guo's design was indeed very precise, and soon his palm power hit his hands. Boom! Yang Guo felt as if he had been hit head-on by a speeding locomotive, which almost caused him death. What flew backwards, turned around for 2.5 weeks, drew her sword and stepped forward. The Jade Maiden Su Xian's 2 swords combined, and it all became a joke. He can only be thrown backwards like a rag doll now. The only thing Yang Guo could do was take a glance at the panel in the air. Name: Yang Guo. Big event. You were attacked by the unknown palm technique, the 9E manual. Hard Qigong proficiency plus 26. A palm strike is more than 4 times the Xuanming divine palm of the 100 damaged Taoist. Nameless palm technique. Who is this big sister? Yang Guo felt that this palm was faintly affecting his just-healed lung injury, and he almost coughed again. Ha! Xiang slapped angrily and originally planned to kill this Liao with just one palm. Unexpectedly, this person's martial arts skills were not weak. He had fought against the Tartars for many years and had no martial arts ethics. With this palm, she launched a surprise attack from behind without the grandeur of a great master, and was able to be detected and dealt with by this young man. Moreover, he received a palm from himself and was unscathed. He landed and turned around to escape, showing his composure in his movements. That's right, Yang Guo turned around and ran. Joking, if he were to harm the Taoist like 100 times, he would dare to fight back with the Jade Maiden Su Xian sword. But with just one slap from the big sister in front of him, what swordsmanship can match? As the saying goes, the Jade Maiden Sushin sword, which cannot be matched together, is just two basic sword techniques. At this time, Yang Guo's strength was comparable to that of the little dragon lady in the Battle of Chongyang Palace. If she couldn't use a combination of two swords, even the likes of Xiao Xiangzi and Yin Keshi wouldn't be able to fight, let alone such a fierce person with a palm comparable to Yang Guo. Didn't I say there are so many masters in this world? This palm is even stronger than Lao Yang's. Is Lao Yang claiming to be the number one in the world? Yang Guo ran for his life while cursing, and his lightness skills and body movements were executed to the extreme. He truly walked flat on these steep cliffs in the mountains and wilderness. Humph, this person's martial arts skills are so high. He must be the lecherous thief who committed a shocking crime and even insulted his mother. Xiang's pretty face was filled with evil energy, his eyes were covered in frost, and he lifted his chi and followed suit. This pursuit lasted for more than 10 days. The land of Hubei has been known for its beautiful peaks and picturesque scenery since ancient times. Upon closer inspection of the towering mountains, there were two figures running rapidly, one in front and the other behind. The young man led by him looked disheveled, his clothes turned into strips of cloth, and his handsome and unparalleled face was covered in sweat and dust. The young man angrily shouted behind him, "Just for one sentence, you followed me 3,000 miles. Even if you're 8,000 miles away, you have to follow." The young man heard this cold female voice as if he had seen a ghost, and the torment he had endured in the past 10 days was much stronger than that of 100 damaged Taoist. These tiger old ladies. Yang Guo gritted his teeth and said, "Chase me, right? Grandpa, let me show you the second best lightness skill in the world of the ancient tomb sect. Because there are too many and complicated timelines, and there are various conflicts between the novel and historical time, the time setting of the Heaven Reliance Scroll is based on Zhang Wuji, which is more convenient. Some half-year time differences are directly rounded up. Zhang Wuji was born in 1337, and at the age of 10, Zhang Sanfeng celebrated his 100th birthday. Therefore, Zhang Sanfeng, who holds the Jin Yong worldview, should have been born in 1247. At the end of the divine sculpture, Zhang Junbao was 12 or 13 years old, so it was 1260. Yang Guo was 36 years old at this time, and Xiang was 16 years old. In 1271, Kublai Khan changed the country's name to Yuan. In 1273, Xiangyang city was destroyed, and in 1279, the southern Song dynasty was completely destroyed, unifying the whole country. In January 1283, when Tianxiang died, the protagonist was born 2 years after the Huashan debate. End of this chapter. Can this game still be played in Chapter 5? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Can this game still be played in Chapter 5? Yang Guo is very upset now. He learned to fight left and right, as long as his two swords were combined, he could conquer the vastness of the world. But now I have encountered a problem, which is that since descending the mountain, the two swords have never been able to blend together. Since more than a dozen days ago when he used his palm power to the point where Xiang almost slapped his back 3 zhang away, he has been suspecting whether his old man Yang Guo, who is the world's #1, is bragging. More than 10 days later, he began to doubt whether Xiaolongnu's top-notch lightness skills were also bragging. This tiger old lady can't shake it off at all. He still remembers Xiaolongnu looking at him seriously before going down the mountain and saying, "You are the second in the world in lightness skills," but this tiger old lady has been following behind like a bony gangrene for more than 10 days. Little dragon girl naturally won't boast to her son. Not only today, but also more than 30 years ago in the Battle of Chongyang Palace, Xiaolongnu's quick moves in the original work are comparable to the description of Dongfang Bubi. Despite facing 3 experts of the same level in the Battle of Chongyang Palace, the little dragon lady's internal strength was not as good as the Mongolian 3 heroes. Despite this, the record of the Eastern Invincible was still replicated. They won 3 battles in 1 battle, and even the Mongolian 3 heroes, who were even stronger than the little dragon lady, could not see how she injured Jin Jibing with her sword. Xiang, not to mention killing someone, even after more than 10 days, was very reluctant to follow him. But just like when Xiaolongnu and Qiu Qianren competed in lightness skills, Xiang's internal strength was much deeper than Yang Guo's. Whenever Yang Guo ran for too long, her internal breathing was not smooth, and her speed slowed down, she would have been unable to stop breathing. If it weren't for this, she would have been lost long ago. Nevertheless, Xiang gradually fell behind. The mountain roads in Shiyan area are steep, and ordinary people need to be cautious when climbing with crutches. However, Yang Guo is like wandering on a flat avenue, swaying left and right among the mountains, resembling a ghost. Without paying any attention, Yang Guo's figure was already behind several mountain walls. Yang Guo also noticed that Xiang was eventually left behind by himself. He simply gave it a go and shook his body, spinning twice between the 2 cliffs and cliffs. I thought to myself that these 2 cliffs and 2 valleys were overgrown with trees and complex terrain. Even though the tiger old lady was still chasing after me closely, at least for half a day, she could never see her own figure. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh in my heart, leaning on the mountain wall to regulate my internal strength. While gasping for breath, an ethereal voice could be heard reciting a melody among the distant mountains. For the first time meditating and learning to meditate, this news is at the entrance. Secret and continuous breathing regulation, 1 yin and 1 yang decoction inside the cauldron. To understand nature, to pass on destiny, and not to treat the heat as idle. Closing one's eyes and observing one's own destiny, purity and inaction are the root cause. This person came very quickly. As soon as the first word sounded, it seemed like a distant voice, at least a few miles away in the distant mountains. But after reciting a few lines of lyrics, the echoes from afar had not even dissipated, and the voice had already been transmitted from Yang Guo's head. "Brother, you are being chased by someone." Yang Guo looked up and saw a young man from Luotua standing at the top of the mountain wall, looking down at him with a smile on his face. This person has an unusual appearance, with a pointed forehead, a thin neck, a wide chest, long legs, and big ears. He wears clothes that are even more disheveled than Yang Guo after 2 dangerous deaths. His clothes are worn out and his shoes are worn out. He has nowhere to hang a long sword with a scabbard, and he is holding it in his hand. It can only be inferred from his bun that he is a Taoist. If you don't know your lover, you might think you're a wild man in the mountains. Yang Guo is a bit PTSD now. When he saw the Taoist, he thought of sneaking an attack. He raised his palm to protect his upper body and probed, saying, "Not bad, I'm being chased. Do you have any advice?" "Oh my," the wild young man waved his hand, "then you need to be careful of your safety and not run over speed." "Nonsense. I'll use you to say it." Yang Guo's lung tube almost exploded with anger. "Where did this come from? You let that tiger old lady chase after you, you run faster than me." Lazy to talk nonsense to the lunatic, he lightly stepped on his feet and swept out a few feet, a few ups and downs, and was about to shake off this person. Unexpectedly, the wind howled from above, and when Yang Guo looked up, the lunatic had taken big steps to keep up, still above his own head. Oh my God! Yang Guo is so angry. As promised, I am the second best in the world in lightness skills. How could there be so many lightness skill masters? Just a wild man can keep up with me, right? Can you still overtake me if I have a cheat? Yang Guo's heart lit up and he said, I like to follow Grandpa, but I'll see if you can keep up. He took a deep breath, used his toad technique, and his chest sank several inches, making his whole body thin. The front chest pressed against the back, like a shadow puppet held by a line behind, fluttering down the towering cliff in an extremely eerie posture. The heavenly sovereign of the infinite goddess. The Taoist, who seemed to have a mental illness, was also startled by Yang Guo's act of jumping off a cliff to commit suicide. However, as he looked in the direction of Yang Guo's arrival, a hint of firmness flashed in his eyes, and he jumped up and down, diving down with his feet and head down. Yang Guo saw him rushing down with a smile on his lips. Fall to death. There was a faint mountain wind blowing in mid-air, and he was really like a piece of paper, falling vertically and being blown sideways. In an instant, taking advantage of the wind, the person had drifted out 7 or 8 zhang away, but seeing that the lunatic was about to prick his head on the rocks. At this critical moment, the Luotua Taoist turned around in mid-air, and all the kinetic energy of his descent turned into lateral thrust, shooting fiercely at Yang Guo like an arrow from a string. Yang Guo is sucking on his teeth and flowers. Is there still a normal person in this world? Sure enough, Linghu Chong is not deceiving me. As the saying goes, when you see a nun, you will lose every bet. Although the 100 losses Taoist and this lunatic are not nuns, both monks and Taoist priests are monks. It's not good to encounter such people. Ha! He suddenly exhaled and let out a sound, and all the breath that Toad Gong had sucked in burst out. His body bulged like a balloon, and he followed suit as he jumped out of the distance, crossed 2 cliffs, and rushed to the opposite side in one breath. Go down, you! Yang Guo doesn't dare to claim to be the second lightness master in the world now, but he can still live up to it. Seeing his crazy lightness skills, he knew that the abyss between the cliffs, which was over 30 meters wide, couldn't be leaped over in one breath. Sure enough, as soon as the Taoist had crossed a distance of 60.7%, his breath became turbid and his body began to fall. But he was calm and composed, as if he had anticipated it before. He took a deep breath and his figure twisted again, as if he had climbed an invisible staircase under the cliff, from falling to rising. Flipped a somersault in the air and landed steadily. Yang Guo slowly cast a question mark. Fuck me, right? Are you fucking me? Is your art style correct? Is this what you should have in this context? He now began to doubt whether he had actually traveled through a world of martial arts, with characters like Fengyun or Tang Dynasty twin dragons infiltrating. Hey, little brother, you're speeding. This is considered uncivilized behavior, and your behavior can easily cause accidents. That lunatic stood in front of Yang Guo, muttering incessantly. I'll step on my horse and kill you. In his past life, Yang Guo was just a lying flat abandoned house. In this life, he was only a 16-year-old boy, and his mind and spirit were not very strong. In the past few months, he has been suffering from a series of dangerous deaths, wilderness survival, and thousands of miles of pursuit. He has already suffered from mental exhaustion and was constantly harassed by this lunatic. Finally, he couldn't help but unsheath his long sword and stab him with a combination of 2 swords. Really, if you ask me, why bother using knives and guns? The Taoist smiled slightly, as if he was already prepared. He slowly took out the long sword that looked like white iron from his hand, drew a half circle in the air, and lightly blocked Yang Guo's 2 swords. He kept muttering, "What can't we sit down and talk about? You die for me." Yang Guo was almost furious. His 2 swords kept hitting back and forth with both hands, and the two cold lights were like flying dragons shuttling back and forth, as fast as electrocution. The ingenuity of the Jade Maiden Sushin sword and the speed of the combination of the two swords were fully displayed, constantly shining on the Luo Tua Taoist to pierce. The Taoist's face gradually became serious and solemn. The long sword in his hand still seemed to be slowly swallowing, but it seemed to have a magnetic force, absorbing every sword of the Jade Maiden Pure Heart sword into the arc drawn by the long sword. This world's most sharp and exquisite swordsmanship seemed to be like a straightforward basic swordsmanship under his command. In just a few short breaths, Yang Guo thrust out a total of 1,670 swords, but the Taoist's curved sword ring was like a copper wall and an iron wall, which could not be crossed at all. Yang Guo began to doubt life. I used to think that being chased and beaten all the time was a problem that the Jade Maiden Sushin sword couldn't handle, but now it seems that using it is just that. Not a single lunatic can slow down and draw circles with the sword. It seems that Lin Chaoying, the founder of this ancient tomb, is also a skilled braggart. But there was no other way. This was already the most powerful killing move that Yang Guo could use, and he could only continue to attack with one swift sword. In the eyes of an expert, his swordsmanship has become chaotic, with his hands piercing faster and faster, far exceeding the speed he can control. On the other hand, the Luotua Taoist became more calm as he fought, his long sword dancing slower and slower, and a smile appeared on his lips. In the end, simply raise the long sword with your chest upright and stand still. Yang Guo's twin swords pierced, and the Taoist's long sword twisted like a snake, spiraling and winding, attempting to bind Yang Guo's two swords together. It is unimaginable in martial arts theory to tie the other two swords with a fine steel long sword, but it was naturally used in the hands of the Luo Tua Taoist. Hey, little brother, you should know that you hit people first, then you hit them later. You hit too fast. Yang Guo couldn't sit still and wait for death. With a flick of his wrist, he used a trap-like technique to pull his double swords away from the encirclement. However, with a single finger of the Taoist's long sword, he ignored his sword and launched a counterattack, pointing towards Yang Guo's wrist, Xuanming acupoint. In Yang Guo's current posture, although he moved his swords first, he extended his wrists forward, so the Taoist's sword tip had to stab his wrist first. It was truly a last shot, first shot tactic. Yang Guo can only change his sword power again. But the sword in the Taoist's hand, shining with a cold light, trembled at the tip and slowly swayed, never leaving the vicinity of his divine gate. I can't beat it. Yang Guo's cold sweat came down. He now doubts whether Lin Chaoying is too weak or the Golden Will Dharma King is too weak. This Jade Maiden Sushin sword looks so delicate, easily suppressed and beaten. How could it have achieved such brilliant results back then? Just as Yang Guo was getting more and more frightened and constrained as he fought, he suddenly felt empty in front of him. He suddenly stopped and almost couldn't even hold his sword and threw it away. Looking at the Taoist again, he had already sheathed his sword and turned around to gaze into the distance. When Yang Guo was wondering if this person had a mental illness, he chuckled and turned around a few times before disappearing into the deep mountains. Damn it, you're crazy. He was inexplicably beaten up, and then the person ran away. Yang Guo suddenly felt very tired and wanted to go home. Although the ancient tomb is boring, there is no madness. But soon, Yang Guo knew why the lunatic suddenly ran away. Lust thief, suffer death. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Originally it was Xiang, Jia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Originally it was Xiang, Jia. Yang Guo heard a coquettish scolding from behind and turned around in fear, almost rolling into the mountain ditch. It turned out that after a struggle between the crazy Taoist and himself, not only was time wasted, but the sound of weapons clashing also spread far and wide in this valley. The complex terrain that Yang Guo had high hopes for had completely lost its confusing effect, and Xiang rushed over following the sound. Xiang, who was being played with, decided to fight quickly and make a big move. As she waved her hands, an air mass appeared in the middle of her palms. Although the color was transparent, the air inside fluctuated like blazing flames, and no one could tell its immense power. Crouching trough, turtle-style qigong. As he watched the air mass being pushed by the tiger old lady, it swept in like a raging wave, causing the air around him to tremble. The threat of death made him tremble all over. Damn it, everyone else's journey through time is like crushing the invincible game of Long Outyan. Why am I just these deadly games? At the beginning, I was hit by a whole set of Xuanming divine palm, and at the beginning, I was chased 3,000 miles. Can this game still be played? Yang Guo reached out and his palm power shook in the air, shattering a huge rock beside him. With the heavenly traps and earthly nets palm technique, he continuously threw it. From a distance, it seemed that Yang Guo had dozens of arms simultaneously throwing hidden weapons. Boom boom boom. The air mass exploded at a single touch, but its power was gradually neutralized by countless collisions of rubble. This is exactly the way Yang Guo's mother, Xiaolongnu, cracked the internal pressure of the Mongolian three heroes during the Battle of Chongyang Palace. You have a deep internal strength, and I can't do it with just one strike. That's 100 strikes, 1,000 strikes. Compared to speed, even Wang Chongyang can only bow down in front of the ancient tomb sect. However, Xiang's internal strength was too deep. Although his aura was constantly weakened and no longer formed into a cohesive mass, when he approached Yang Guo, his power was still as strong as her usual air-splitting palm power. At this point, Yang Guo could no longer avoid it. Clam. Yang Guo had no choice but to use the same old method, which was hard qigong and qi closing method into the 9-yin manual. Just this time, there was no resistance from retreating 3 zhang to release force and pushing out one's own palms. Puff. Yang Guo spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, but dared not stop at all. With this palm power, he flew out 3 to 5 zhang away. Then, the ancient tomb lightness skill's body technique reached its extreme and disappeared without a trace, leaving only his voice echoing on the mountain road. I'm saying goodbye, big sister. Damn it. Xiang is also very anxious. Xiang Yuan planned to engage in a quick battle and make a quick decision, but along the way, the two of them were galloping along the road, as fast as airplanes. With such a big commotion, the Yuan court probably knew that Xiang had left Shu. Once a large army was sent to surround her, no matter how skilled her martial arts were, she could not escape. She couldn't help but feel anxious. If she leaves at this moment and heads west all the way into the Zhongnan Mountains, the Yuan army will never be able to catch her, no matter how many there are. If she can enter the ancient tomb, the Yuan army will be able to suppress the formation and ensure safety. Just. Can we go? Xiang gave a mournful smile and said, if you die, you'll die. It's perfect to go and reunite with your father, mother, sister, and younger brother's family. She spoke with a sharp look in her eyes, looking towards the direction where Yang Guo had fled and muttering softly to herself, before you die, you must also kill this pervert who insulted my mother. Azu. Yang Guo sneezed weakly and said, who scolded me? It must be that tiger old lady. After abandoning Xiang, he ran all the way and quickly left the mountainous area to a nearby town. He sneaked in and borrowed a residential house to recuperate. Fortunately, though the 9-yin manual's hard qigong and qi holding method are also excellent. In those years, Heifeng Shuangsha was famous for its copper corpse and iron corpse, because of only a little knowledge of the wrong practice method, and could not enter the Jianghu. If Guo Jing had not pierced the mask with a sharp knife, Chen Xianfeng would have been a great master when he arrived at the Xinjiao period. And Yang Guo, who had gained authentic internal strength from elementary school, was naturally even more extraordinary. Although he suffered a palm strike from Xiang, he had already reversed his meridians, and his lightness skills drifted back with the flow. With a mouthful of fresh blood, he sprayed out 60% of it, leaving 40%. When he penetrated through the hard qigong protection and hit Yang Guo's organs, it was only to the extent that he had damaged the Taoist Xuanming divine palm. But Guoxiang's palm power does not contain cold poison. If Yang Guo did not deliberately use cold poison to practice, it would take only a few days to repair it well. After all, I have just suffered such an injury and have gained experience in raising it. It smells so good. Yang Guo calmed his internal breathing and stood up, wanting to go to the tavern in town to find something to eat. He had narrowly escaped death twice in the past few months and had never eaten a serious meal. Just now, the aroma of cooking from the back kitchen of the restaurant drifted over, and Yang Guo almost chewed his tongue greedily. Oh, that's what the world is all about. Yang Guo walked into the restaurant and stepped up to the second floor. Watching the martial arts people carrying swords and swords toasting back and forth, the passing merchants drinking tea, the local sour scholar reciting a few nonsensical sour poems through the window, and the shop assistant walking back and forth, Yang Guo finally felt a bit of a famous young hero's beginning. The martial arts dream of winning snow in white clothes and wielding swords in the martial arts world has returned. Yang Guo learned from the legendary hero's way and picked a table to sit down, shouting, "Waiter, serve wine." "Hey, here we go." The waiter with a white handkerchief draped over his shoulder seemed to run faster than the ancient tomb lightness skill. "Sir, what do you want to use?" "Prepare a few of your specialty dishes and bring 2 pounds of wine." Yang Guo didn't know what he wanted and continued to learn from the legendary hero. The dishes are served quickly, and this shop has good craftsmanship and good wine. Although the alcohol content is not high, it is very fragrant and mellow. After quickly finishing his meal, the waiter ran up and said, "Master, there's a total of 50.2 taels of silver. Can you give me the reward for the meal?" "No need to look." Yang Guo still learned the way of a great hero and threw down a pill got it. Yang Guo remembered that the tiger old lady had been chasing and killing for more than 10 days, with only 2 long swords on her body and all the other burdens thrown into the barren mountains and forests. How could she still have any silver on her body? The waiter's face changed and he said, "Master. Before finishing my second conversation, I suddenly heard a table of martial artists holding knives and swords next to me say, 'Hey, have you heard? Miss Guo from the Guo family has recently come out again.'" Yang Guo immediately turned his head. "Miss Guo's second daughter. Who is it?" The person who spoke pointed to the east and said, "That's the Guo family. To the east of Shiyan is Xiang. They are all from the border of Hubei to make a living, and that person already understood at the time, isn't that going to be chaotic again?" The person who spoke shook his head and said, "It can be said that the court has already mobilized troops. It is said that 20,000 troops have been mobilized nearby and scattered in half of Hubei to search and capture. Once discovered, they will be surrounded and killed at any cost." The person next to him sighed and said, "I heard she's already hiding in the deep mountains of Shu. Why bother coming out again to die?" The person who spoke took a sip of wine and shook his head, saying, "Who knows where to go? I don't know who I'm chasing. It's been more than 10 days, and I've been coming from Shaanxi all the way. I've been wandering for thousands of miles, and countless people have seen her, but I don't know." "Who are you talking about?" The waiter's eyes seemed to flicker for a moment, and Yang Guo had already appeared in front of the table next to him. He grabbed the wrist of the strong man who spoke and asked, "Who do you think the court is searching for?" Even if Yang Guo was injured, it was not something that ordinary Jianghu men could see clearly. He felt as if a handsome young man suddenly appeared in the air, grabbing his wrist and questioning. The man angrily said, "Kid, who are you? If you don't inquire about the master's character, it's broken. Stop it." Yang Guo exerted 2 extra forces on his hand, causing the man to sweat profusely in pain. Young Xia, it's easy to say something." The strong man clearly understood the way of survival and quickly tried to please him. Stop talking nonsense, what happened to what you just said? Yang Guo asked. Don't you know yet? These days, it's been spreading all over our Hubei, Shaanxi, southern and northern Sichuan roads. The strong man looked like he was about to tell a story. Miss Guo, just the Guo from Xiangyang 5 years ago, came out of Sichuan and is about to kill someone. After chasing her for more than 10 days, she ran in circles, and the scenery is very beautiful. Who doesn't know that we are fellow martial artists around here? Nonsense. Yang Guo felt that this story was very familiar. Miss Guo, what kind of strength is there? Even dozens of ordinary martial artists in the martial arts world are not enough for her to slap. Who can make her chase for more than 10 days? The strong man said. How can I know that? Anyway, the remnants of the Guo family in Xiangyang have died. The imperial army has called for a roundup. A troop of soldiers is coming to us. The master of supervisor of the county has ordered to clean the water and splash the street and pave the way with lus. I don't know. Yang Guo was lost in thought. Looking back at those tiger old women, they were beautiful, highly skilled in martial arts, in their 30s, and carrying an obviously heavy sword on their backs. Hiss, young Xia, no, sir. The strong man interrupted Yang Guo's thinking with a pleasing expression on his face. What are you doing? Yang Guo said impatiently. I've said everything I know, but I don't know if you have anything else to command, Grandpa. Oh, Yang Guo glanced at him and then scanned his own table and waiter over there. I'm fine, but this. I understand. The strong man was very sensible and said to the waiter, that old man's account is on my head. Walking slowly, it's quite good. Yang Guo patted his shoulder with a smile on his face, and a burst of internal energy hit his shoulder well acupoint. With the help of this internal energy, if this person diligently cultivates, their strength will surely rise to a higher level within 3 years. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. The strong man clearly understood that he was about to kneel down and kowtow to Yang Guo on the spot, but Yang Guo had long disappeared. At this moment, Yang Guo returned to his residence, practicing his skills to heal his injuries while contemplating. Why is Aunt Xiang chasing me? Did she finally become obsessed after the destruction of Xiangyang City, thinking that if she didn't get it, she would destroy it? From then on, she regarded my father as a lifelong enemy and wanted to kill his son for surgery. The more Yang Guo thought about it, the more he thought about it, the more likely it was. After all, Xiang's disciple, the exterminated nun, had this kind of virtue, and his ancient tomb sect also had such deeds of predecessors who wanted to kill their entire family out of love and hatred. Love brain is really scary. However, Aunt Xiang, since it's you, then I'm just. Jia. There was a ghostly laughter in the residential area that even 4 or 5 elders of the Soul Hall couldn't make out without eating, which frightened the surrounding households to tightly close their doors and windows. Yang Guo's internal injury was originally quite serious, but he used the injury to stimulate the growth of his internal power. The Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, which was about to be upgraded, broke through at this moment. With a powerful internal power flowing through his limbs and bones, his internal injury instantly improved by 99%. Yang Guo felt that if he had a full meal at night, his condition would be better than before going down the mountain. At this point, Yang Guo's panel looks like this. Name. Yang Guo age. 16 skill. Old Chinese LV 75501/5600 Mongolian LV 6, 14/4800 left and right mutual combat LV 101445/infinity martial arts. Jade Maiden Heart Classic LV 9, 3/10,000 Jade Girl Sushin Sword LV 92591/12,000 Sky Luo Earth Net LV 10, 35/Infinity Beauty Fist LV 10, 55/Infinity Bird Catching Skill LV101450/Infinity Toad Skill LV5515/7200 Donji Shantong LV6 85/8000 Retrograde Meridian LV8845/6000 The 9 Manual, Remnant, LV9, Hard Qigong 105/1400, Tendon and Bone Forging 65/Infinity, Acupoint Decoding 1200/1400, Soul Shifting 60/800, Qi Blocking 35/Infinity Major Event. You have studied the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, with a proficiency level of +8. The Jade Maiden Heart Sutra has been upgraded to LV9. In addition to internal strength, all attributes have also increased, especially the proficiency growth in Sparrow Hunting Skill, Reverse Meridian, and Hard Qi Skill is the most exaggerated. Yang Guo stood up and felt a refreshing sensation. It was time for him to go and get in line with that tiger old lady. But it's so strange. It's been half a day now, why hasn't she caught up yet? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Auntie, stop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Auntie, stop. Yang Guo finished his work and stood up to see that it was already evening. He was ready to go out to the wild to catch some food. Having no money, it is impossible to always buy and sell at a restaurant. Just as I arrived at Zenzaku, I saw a group of Tartar troops stationed about 2 miles away, heavily guarded, and it seemed difficult to leave, so I had to walk back. No wonder that tiger old lady didn't come. Yang Guo didn't pay much attention either. The Yuan court dared to order the pursuit of the remnants of the Guo family, but for the divine eagle hero who could kill Meng Guo with a flying stone in the midst of 1,000 armies, it was a slide that could not be touched, let alone know that Yang Guo even had such an old son now. It's not him who's wanted, he's afraid of a ball. By the evening night, I flipped into the county government office. During the day, he heard the man say that the master of supervisor of the county was so obsequious that he must be a dog official. Sure enough, within 2 steps of walking in the back hall of the county government office, I smelled a foul smell. Following the smell, I saw a bamboo strip. When I opened it, the hairtail given by the plaintiff below smelled bad. There was even a dirty piece of paper that read, Lu Laosi pays homage to Constable Li. The Grand Master of Supervisor of the county even blacked out the hairtail of the captor. It can be seen that he is indeed a dog official. When I got to the back hall, the Master of Supervisor of the county was doing a multi-person campaign with his concubines. They were lewd and gossipy. Yang Guo was also too lazy to manage. According to the tradition of a great hero, he should have acted on behalf of the heavens and killed this dog official at this time. However, now the army of the Yuan court is in Zenzaku, and Yang Guo only went out of his way after being twisted. I casually took a few ingots of silver from the warehouse, about a few tens of taels, then flipped over and jumped out again. Just as 2 pairs of cotton wool landed without making any sound, Yang Guo happily threw the silver ingot. Now, not only did he pay for his meal, but he also had clothes and shoes. After a delicious meal, Yang Guo changed all his clothes and even took a hot bath. He didn't even sneakily borrow a house, but instead found a rented courtyard and threw an ingot to the homeowner, so he settled in. Yang Guo was originally thinking that he could have a good night's sleep tonight and find a way to go out of town tomorrow to find Xiang and take her to run quickly. In the middle of the night, as soon as the bangzi struck, Yang Guo suddenly opened his eyes and his hair stood on end. The huge sense of crisis made him tremble with fear. Without any hesitation, the bed suddenly jumped up with a tap, and it moved horizontally in the air by a foot. Its body smashed the window and came out directly. Before Yang Guo could land, there was a loud bang, and it seemed like a mud truck had crashed in. The walls and doors of the courtyard were all shattered, shattering the bed he had just slept on. Yang Guo almost thought that Chen Hagao had arrived, and rolled around on the ground in embarrassment before standing up. He looked up and saw that the woman who had been chasing him for more than 10 days was standing not far away. This tiger old lady. Yang Guo was frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. If it weren't for being taught by two experts at the Five Wonders level, he would have been sleeping on a cold jade bed for years, fighting against the cold pool and the undercurrent of the river. His internal strength was already quite intense, and he could have sensed a crisis of life and death in the dark. At this point, he would have been shattered by the palm power of that mud cart. Yang Guo also held a cloud of anger in his heart. Although he had guessed that this person was likely Xiang, he chased after him thousands of miles and even used a mud-headed cart to attack him at night. If he didn't beat her up without revealing his identity, he might not have a chance in the future. Miso. Yang Guo first drew a long sword and used a move called Little Garden Art Chrysanthemum to stab it. The long sword flew lightly and floated forward, with a graceful and ethereal posture. The body moved with the sword, like a sharp arrow piercing through Xiang's chest. The body technique of the ancient tomb is already unparalleled in the world, and the Jade Maiden Sushin sword is also an unparalleled sword technique for fighting against the Golden-Willed Dharma King alone. This move of the sword borrows the power of people, and people borrow the power of the sword. Its speed is so fast that if people like Zhao Zhijing and Zhen Jibing were to see it back then, they might not even be able to see it and die with one move. However, Xiang is not the green onion girl who needed Zhu Yuan to fight to death and use an iron bucket to carry her down and save her life at Shaolin Temple more than a decade ago. She saw Yang Guo stab with a sword, and even her face remained unchanged, still full of a gloomy aura, as if a living dead person. Just a gentle extension of the left hand, like a white jade, with an extremely sharp angle, reaching out at an impossible angle, as if slow and sickly, as if about to capture Yang Guo's long sword in his hand. This is the 9 cut hands palm technique of Ame, which will be further developed in the hands of the extinct abbess in the future. But Yang Guo survived 2 sneak attacks and seemed to have an epiphany, and his artistic style began to develop towards the Yin aspect. With a turn of his steps, he walked around behind Xiang and then pulled out another sword. He used a move called Cold Moon Pierce, and the long sword trembled, covering the enemy's upper body. The other sword should take advantage of the enemy's protection and stab the enemy's abdomen. Unexpectedly, Xiang had no idea what he was doing. With a backward thrust of his right hand, his palm power surged like a mountain and sea. Yang Guo felt his breath suffocated and he felt like he was hitting an air wall head-on, completely transforming his swordsmanship. After more than 10 days of fighting, Yang Guo knew that Xiang not only had extremely deep internal strength, but also had extraordinary strength in his hands. He dared not confront her head-on, so he quickly used the ancient tomb body technique to stagger his body shape and attacked again with his double swords. The body movements of Yang Guo's ancient tomb are executed to the extreme, either moving forward or backward, or straight or curved. The body sways continuously, and under the moonlight, it looks like ghosts and ghosts scattered everywhere. At the same time, the sword tip trembles and hums like an electric shock. 2 long swords enveloped Xiang, dancing like pear blossoms all over his body, like drifting snow, reflecting the moonlight like huge snowballs rolling back and forth, which was really beautiful. Yang Guo finally displayed this unparalleled swordsmanship to his heart's content without being ambushed or displaying his full aura. Not everyone is that crazy Taoist, even if they end up losing, at least they won't lose on stage. Yang Guo finally had a slight feeling that I was a strong person. Xiang stood still in place, clapping or pushing with both hands, and the attack of Yang Guo's twin swords was eliminated invisibly. The great master's demeanor was fully displayed. She only felt the sharpness and speed of the young swordsmanship in front of her, and even more so, the Ilao Mountain 36 swords, which were known as the first sharp swordsmanship in Yunnan. If it comes to being handsome, beautiful, and ethereal like an immortal, it is not inferior to my grandfather's falling eagle sword and jade flute sword techniques. Although she has gathered 3 unique skills in the past 18 years, her strength is no less than that of her deceased father Guojing, but in a short period of time, it seems like she was being suppressed and beaten by Yang Guo. Of course, Yang Guo also had a lot of confidence in his mind. He knew that Xiang's internal strength was far superior to his own, and he dared not approach him. He only used exquisite sword techniques to fight in the outer circle. Xiang became more and more eager to win, and it was inevitable that he would win. However, if he continued to fight like this, he might not be able to win this kid even at dawn. I have been entangled with him for a long time, with a grand momentum. I'm afraid someone might have noticed and reported to the Tartar army outside the city. When the army is surrounded, I will definitely die. With a bite of her silver teeth, the whirlwind swept out 3 legs in a row, forcing Yang Guo's swords to slide to the side. With both hands bending their fingers and flicking repeatedly, a huge sound of wind breaking like a strong bow and crossbow bounced towards Yang Guo's twin swords. Dang! Dang! 2 small stones were like giant trees, crashing into the sky and ringing a giant bell, spreading far and wide in the night. Yang Guo felt like his long sword was being struck with a heavy hammer, almost unable to grasp it, and flew out. Although he struggled to stabilize, his swordsmanship was knocked to a halt. Xiang let out a low shout, his internal power changed direction, and he used the dragon elephant prajnaparamita technique. His small white jade-like hands swelled a bit, and his palm power covered Yang Guo's entire body, hitting him hard with one palm on the head. Sleeping slot. Yang Guo now knows that these tiger old women are Xiang. Based on the results, it is likely that this palm was the Buddha's light that later extinguished the abyss. Xiang is still dressed in secular attire, obviously not yet a monk. This palm may not be called the Buddha's light, but the palm she used to stimulate with the dragon elephant prajnaparamita technique is much higher than that of the extinction master. Yang Guo didn't know how he could think of so many things in an instant, probably this was the lantern before his death. He couldn't help but regret it in his heart. If he had listened to his father's advice and practiced the dark iron sword technique in the mountains, floods, and waterfalls, he would have had experience dealing with this huge and powerful force that was thrown down head-on. What else can we stop? In Yang Guo's heart, there was no time to regret his mistake of only pursuing grandeur while practicing martial arts. The running horse lamp was spinning faster and faster, and suddenly the crazy Taoist appeared in front of him. Got it. Yang Guo's body technique turned to its extreme, and he desperately retreated. At the same time, he used his internal power to force the long sword to bend. In an instant, the 2 long swords were like snakes, winding upwards, forming a circle that dissolved a lot of force. However, the palm power was too strong, and in an instant, the 2 swords were knocked away. Ha! Xiang let out a faint sigh, feeling as if the double swords in front of her had instantly turned into a pair of silver ribbons and golden bells. Gugua! A toad's cry came, and after abandoning his sword, Yang Guo did not retreat but instead advanced. From the side, he pounced like a big frog, pushing his palms horizontally and holding onto the palm force. In an instant, he was knocked away. However, with his palm force moving horizontally and facing him, he flew towards Xiang in a round direction. Puff! Yang Guo spewed out a mouthful of blood in mid-air, exacerbating his previously strained internal injuries. But he didn't care about this. He was close to Xiang and tightly hugged her slender waist. What a soft waist! Yang Guo almost exclaimed, good. Still alive. Xiang was also greatly surprised. Even if her deceased father Guo Jing came to take over her palm, Kan Long would have to have some regrets. She was unaware that Yang Guo was using the technique of reversing meridians while using the toad technique, making the affected area become wide and thick meridians, thus greatly increasing her resistance. Yang Guo replicated the story of his father when he was young, but unfortunately, Xiang is a romantic brain, not a big lover like Li Macho. She only knew that the sound of horse hooves could be faintly heard at this moment, afraid that the official army had already set out and the 2-mile journey would arrive in an instant, afraid that something might happen. Xuanming. Without any hesitation, he pulled out the peerless sword with a cold gleam from his back and struck Yang Guo's arm. Before the edge of the sword arrived, the edge of the blade was cold. Seeing that the Yang family and their son were about to end up in the Guo family's sister's sword, Yang Guo was frightened and shouted, "Aunt!" The frost suddenly came to an end. Breathing. Breathing. In the quiet night, only the sound of Yang Guo panting heavily remained. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. What are you doing? Sigh, hey, yo, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. What are you doing? Sigh, hey, yo. Xiang frowned and looked at the boy in front of him. What are you shouting about? Even if Yang Guogang knelt down and kowtowed to call his grandparents, he couldn't stop Xiang from striking him with a sword. However, she has a psychological shadow over the word aunt. Of course, there are also some inexplicable strange fantasies. How many times did she dream back at midnight? She always thought that if she could be born 20 years earlier, become a big dragon girl, and let Yang Guo hold her and call her aunt, and also apologize to the little dragon girl. This kind of deep longing, even if the country is destroyed or the family is destroyed, cannot be contained. Xiang's face turned slightly red when he thought of this. Yang Guo was still immersed in the shadow of almost death and did not speak. The heaven-reliant sword was originally forged by the two swords of a gentleman and a lady. If Yang Guo were to be cut by a single sword, then the Yang family's father and son would have the same fate with the same sword under the sisters of the Guo family. This will be passed down to future generations and must not be laughed to death. But these old women's waist is really soft. Yang Guo has never seen such a beautiful woman like Xiang in his 2 lifetimes. His mind is blank now, with only instincts left. Holding Xiang's waist, his saliva almost drips. Xiang carefully looked at the young man she had chased for thousands of miles for more than 10 days for the first time. He found that the young man was so handsome, with Daoshao noodles and sword eyebrows. It seemed that he was more handsome than her big brother. That's natural. When she saw Yang Guo, he was in a state of desolation, disheveled, with a rough appearance. His appearance had already declined significantly compared to his youth. Besides Yang Guo's handsome appearance, Yang Guo also inherited the unparalleled beauty of little dragon girl. Even the young Yang Guo who had just emerged from the ancient tomb was inferior. Just his expression. Xiang watched as the handsome young man knelt on the ground and tightly hugged his waist, with a lascivious smile on his face, and his eyebrows furrowed even deeper. She lifted her sword again. The chilly Yang Guo suddenly regained his senses and shouted, don't chop, Auntie, I'm your great-nephew. Fart. Xiang angrily cursed, my younger brother died in battle when Xianyang city was destroyed. Before his death, he never got married. Where did I get my nephew? Yang Guo pouted and said, you're right. I'm the son of your older brother Yang Guo. You want to die. As soon as this sentence was spoken, Xiang's eyebrows turned upside down, and his killing intent was more than 10 times stronger than before. He was about to stab Yang Guo with his sword. How could she let such a despicable pervert insult her big brother? No, you tiger old lady. It's just your heavenly sword or my family's sword that I forged for you. Your sister used this sword to chop off my father's arm back then. Are you still coming to chop me today? Are you talking about martial arts? Yang Guo was an old cross-talk enthusiast for over a decade in his past life. He couldn't even handle the 9-character subject with his back and mouth, and under the threat of death, his mouth pouted like a machine gun, chasing Wang Yuyan at lightning speed. After hearing this, Xiang stopped once again. The heavenly sword in her hand was forged after the melting of the 2 swords of a gentleman and a lady. As the Guo family perished in the city, only the ancient tomb should have known. You're really big. Are you really his son? Of course, Yang Guo said sincerely, no, you can't recognize the martial arts of the ancient tomb sect. You. Humph, I haven't seen Sister Long take action before. Xiang snorted and carefully looked at Yang Guo's face. There was really a fifth resemblance between his eyebrows and eyes to Yang Guo, so he felt even more sad because the other fifth resembled little dragon girl. Yang Guo also deserved it. Pursuing something handsome is a lifelong pursuit, and he despises his father's wooden pile-style method of using force to suppress others. If he could use one move today, Xiang wouldn't fail to recognize his identity. But he was not convinced and said, you don't even know how to fight left and right. Isn't Grandpa Guo good at it? Do you know how to fight left and right? Xiang exclaimed in surprise. The Jade Maiden Sushin sword was used alone, and it was very closely coordinated. In Xiang's view, this sword move was well coordinated, as if there were no flaws. She had seen a number of divine arts and top-notch experts in her life, which ordinary people would not dare to imagine, but she did not have such a sword technique. Therefore, she only regarded it as a clever swordsmanship, but did not realize that it was actually a combination of two swordsmanship. Of course, the main thing is that Guo Jing doesn't know all the true swordsmanship, and she hasn't seen it either. How fresh are you? My Jade Maiden Sushin sword is a combination of Jade Maiden sword and Xuanjin sword, and the authentic old Xuanjin fights left and right against each other. Back then, my parents, fought against the Golden Will Master to save Senior Huang and your sister. They couldn't fight at first, but later understood the essence of the couple's protection and mutual understanding, and fought against the old bald donkey. Yang Guo noticed that Xiang's face became increasingly ugly as he spoke. Later on, it seemed like he was about to use the heavenly sword to kill himself, and he awkwardly stopped talking. Well, no one has told me about this past, it's quite novel. Xiang's tone was originally cold, but later he realized that his mother Huang Rong knew she was deeply in love and wouldn't go into detail about what happened back then. Why did he bother to vent his anger with a child? So his tone softened later on. At the same time, being able to reveal such secrets that he didn't even know, Xiang also believed in Yang Guo's identity in his heart. Then her tone changed and she became serious again. What's your name? Yang Guo. Are you still holding on? At this moment, Xiang looked at Yang Guo's hands tightly embracing his waist, and his face turned a little red. I'm numb and can't move. Yang Guo used a bitter meat trick to take advantage of the situation. Once again, Xiang's waist is really soft. You. Xiang pressed on his shoulder and two internal forces penetrated his body. After spinning for 2 weeks, Yang Guo only felt warm all over his body, at least his limbs could move. Get up quickly. Yang Guo looked at the eye panel. Major event. You have been treated with a Mei 9 Yang skill, and your injury has been partially healed. Yang Guo couldn't help but let go and stood up. Oh my, it's nice to have the sun tonight. Young Xian niece, you come from a prestigious family and have such martial arts skills at a young age. You may not be able to compete with your father in the future. How could you do such a thing? Xiang stiffened his face and angrily rebuked, what a sin is this? You've been lusting women, slaughtering the whole family, colluding with the Mongols, and... what a sin is this? Fortunately, you've met me, and there's still a way back. You can come back to the ancient tomb with me, apologize to your parents, and maybe you can still survive. Otherwise, no one can really save you. What nonsense are you talking about? Yang Guo almost jumped up and cursed on the street. Where is this all about? Even if you didn't agree, you attacked me and chased me for thousands of miles. How could it be so heinous to me? I didn't finish speaking, but I felt the ground tremble, and there seemed to be thunder echoing outside the town. Xiang's face turned unpleasant and he said, no, the cavalry of the Tartars has arrived. She was familiar with this kind of voice, and after the destruction of Xiangyang city, she was also chased by the Yuan army several times, narrowly surviving. She picked up Yang Guo and was about to jump into the room, but her hand felt heavy. "What are you doing, seeking death?" Xiang only thought of Yang Guo and didn't want to escape. "You dare to ask?" Yang Guo was furious and said, "It wasn't you tiger old lady who did it. Yesterday's move, turtle sec qigong, and just now's palm. It's good if I can still live. Now that my internal breathing is disrupted, how can I use lightness skill? There's no other way." Xiang said decisively in his eyes, "Auntie will accompany you to die here today." "No, what kind of nonsense are you tiger old ladies talking about? Yang Guo, who speaks from a god's perspective, is not big or small. If Guo Jing were here, he would have had to slap him on the wall and couldn't even pick it off." But Guo Xiang's former nickname was Xiao Dongxia, and he didn't pay much attention to it. "What, you still have a way out?" Yang Guo also furrowed his brows, wondering why all the way down the mountain was a crisis of life and death. "I've seen the Tartars outside the town, and there are only about 400 people. The cavalry in the town cannot be deployed, so there's a chance." "Are you sure you can kill them?" Guo Xiang was surprised. "Not to mention 400 people. When Huang Yaoshi and 3 other martial artists were surrounded by 300 Mongolian cavalry, they had a strong will to die. Besides, now that they are 2 people, Yang Guo is still seriously injured." "Of course not." Yang Guo looked at Guo Xiang with a foolish gaze and said, "You can't even escape. How could you possibly pass a fight? Just run away." "No way." Guo Xiang said decisively, "If we want to walk together, as an elder, how could we possibly leave you here alone? No, you let go, you go first, hurry up, don't procrastinate." Yang Guo's voice was very anxious. "No, even if I die here today, I have to take out Brother Yang's bones and blood." Guo Xiang's hand gripped Yang Guo like an iron pliers, unable to break it open. "What are you doing? Sigh hey yo." Yang Guo looked anxious and cried, "Are you sick? The Tartars didn't know who I was originally. Isn't holding my hand like this telling the Tartars that I colluded with the Guo family's remaining sins?" "Ha! Ha!" Guo Xiang's brain was short-circuited, and Gao Ling Yujie suddenly looked a bit stunned. "Yes. Yes," she said quickly, let go of Yang Guo's hand, but it was too late. "Rebel Guo Xiang. There are also comrades, killed to death. The army of the Tartars has entered the town, and the leader waves and shouts loudly." Yang Guo covered his face in pain. "I'll die in your hands sooner or later." Since that was the case, Yang Guo did not hesitate and reached out to pick up the 2 long swords that had been shattered by Guo Xiang, throwing them at the Yuan army in a rain of flowers. "Ouch! The rebels are powerful, charge me." The leader's face was scratched by fragments, and with a command, a rebellion began to charge forward. As he got closer, Yang Guo could even see the fierce expression on the leader's face. "That's not right." Yang Guo suddenly noticed a blind spot and said, "I can only see his face clearly now. What is the strength of this leader? I could see your face clearly from such a distance just now. What can you see clearly?" Guo Xiang sneered, "Do the Tartars need a reason to kill? If he sees us 2 standing on the street, that's the order to kill. Not to mention the 2 of us, if we can kill each other, the people in the town will have to be looted one by one." "Ha! Ha!" Yang Guo lost his sight in both eyes and said, "So, if I hadn't taken action earlier, there's still a chance I could have paid some money and gone over." "Yeah," Guo Xiang said naturally. "Yes. It's me, kill me." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Linghu Chong sword slashes the pig 8 precepts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Linghu Chong sword slashes the pig 8 precepts. Don't talk nonsense, pay attention to yourself. Yang Guo felt a chill in her hand and noticed that the heavenly sword had been pushed into her hand by Xiang, while she pushed her hands like windows, cutting open the air in front of her and lightly drifting away. As the distance grew closer and closer, the faces of the several Yuan soldiers who were rushing towards the front had already shown cruel smiles. The feeling of being knocked down by the impact of a horse, with broken tendons and broken bones, as a useless two-legged sheep, he had killed too many and had already been intoxicated by it. Qing Jisai. The Yuan soldiers shouted the title of Timeshen in Mongolian and rushed towards Xiang. Xiang was fearless, not retreating but advancing. As he saw his horse's hooves approaching, he suddenly pushed his palms. Sigh the law. With a scream from the crotch of the horse, the Yuan soldiers led by them were thrown high by the platoon with their horses, flying 4 or 5 Yuan soldiers behind them and crashing into the ground. They were seen dead. The cavalry behind was blocked by this, and their horses were immediately in chaos, their formation was broken, and their impact was lost. Yang Guo is unable to use his martial arts skills and cannot achieve lightness, but his footwork allows him to walk around the gaps between the Tartars and horses. With the sharp edge of the heaven-reliant sword, he kills the Yuan soldiers in a flurry. There are strong ones. The general in charge shouted, "Now is the time when the Yuan dynasty swept the world, and the Mongolian cavalry will not retreat because the opponent has martial arts experts." It was too late to turn around and shoot arrows, but the streets of the town were narrow, and I even piled up people and horses to kill them. The leader of the team immediately ordered his subordinates to surround him. When Xiang saw the Yuan soldiers pressing forward, he no longer concealed his strength. With a rub of his hands, a huge air mass even larger than what Yang Guo had seen appeared in his hands. Are you using 3 parts returning to the original energy, turtle-style qigong, or martial arts? Although it was not the first time to see him, he was still shocked, and Yang Guo could not help roast behind him. 3 parts return to the original energy, it sounds pretty good. Xiang smiled sweetly and didn't have time to explain to him. He turned his hands and pushed the air out. Boom! Xiang launched a large wave of gunfire into the Tartar soldiers, causing casualties and throwing his limbs and arms into the sky. The Tartars established in the early Yuan dynasty were truly formidable, sweeping across the Eurasian continent with an invincible momentum. They rushed forward like they didn't want to die, completely ignoring the casualties of their colleagues. Under this overwhelming pressure, even though Xiang's strength was only flesh and blood, how could she stop it? She had to fight and retreat with Yang Guo. As time passed, the number of corpses of the Yuan soldiers on the ground increased, and she felt more and more tired. Her moves were much smaller. Xiang is dying. Kill him. The leading Tartar general shouted loudly. Kill. The Yuan soldiers took a step forward together, and the earth seemed to tremble. Not good. Xiang was exhausted and for a moment, he was intimidated by the spirit of this military formation, slowing down a step. When I regained my senses, I couldn't resist it anymore. Miso. The heavenly sword trembled with a sound. The 3 Yuan soldiers in front of Xiang were already lying on the ground, unaware of their life or death. Yang Guo has been practicing the Jade Maiden Pure Heart Sword since childhood, and the importance to his companions is clear. Originally, the essence of this sword technique was to save the other party regardless of his own safety. Xiang regained his senses and raised his hand to shake open several Yuan soldiers who wanted to take the opportunity to attack Yang Guo. Yang Guo swung his sword and killed again. Although Xiang did not know how to use Xuanming sword or Jade Maiden sword, she had already achieved divine skills at this time, and fighting alone was no less than a combination of 2 swords. She and Yang Guo came and went together, helping each other to heal each other's weaknesses, and working together, they were just like Jade Maiden's pure heart sword, with increasing power and decreasing pressure. Ding dang! 2 long spears attempted to pierce through Xiang, but Yang Guo swung his sword and cut them off completely. The spear had landed, and together with 2 Yuan soldiers, they slashed through with chest length. Xiang looked at the young man holding a sword and protecting himself behind him, his eyes a bit dazed. When I was still a baby, big brother and sister Long were like this, helping each other and beating my master, right? The tall and upright figure in front of him seemed to coincide with the haunted figure, and for some reason, Xiang's heart was filled with sweetness. Then he quickly regained his senses and slapped half of the body of Yuan Bing, causing him to collapse. Guo, what are you excited about? Save your energy. Yang Guo turned back. You have to worry, the food I've eaten is longer than the road you've walked. Xiang's thoughts were shattered, his words incoherent, and his face flushed red. Fortunately, the night was deep and no one could see it. Why are you shouting so loudly? Yang Guo looked aggrieved and swung his sword to kill 2 Yuan soldiers. Shut up. Xiang let out a loud roar, jumped up, and his palm fell from the top, forcefully smashing the 2 Yuan soldiers into meat patties. Yuan Bing. Can you two not kill us if you have emotions? The Yuan soldiers were truly elite. Seeing the 2 of them gradually entering a better state of cooperation and increasing their killing power, they did not retreat but instead advanced. Under the command of that general, they launched a more fierce charge. Guo, grab a horse. Yang Guo can be distracted for 2 purposes. He swings his sword and chops at people while regulating his internal energy. He feels that his internal breathing has stabilized, and although his internal injuries are still present, he is able to use his lightness skills. When he sees the Yuan soldiers surrounding and pressing, he immediately jumps up in the air without saying a word. I've been wanting to give it a try for a long time. Yuan Bing was about to shoot the guy who dared to jump to death with an arrow, but he heard the buzzing sound of the heavenly sword body, followed by a cold thorn at 20.8 o'clock. Ah! Ah! Eyes, my eyes! Screams of agony echoed one after another. Yang Guo actually stabbed 14 people blind with one sword. Xiang took the opportunity to snatch 2 horses from these 14 people. Yang Guo landed on the horse's back and slammed his sword onto its buttocks. The 2 horses ran wildly and quickly broke out of the enclosure. Shoot arrows! Shoot arrows! The Yuan army general behind him who had been blinded by Yang Guo was still desperately shouting. But since we have already broken out of the encirclement, shooting arrows is actually the least frightening thing. Xiang held a horse of the Yuan army in his hand, standing horizontally behind him, and protected the 2 of them tightly. Poochie poochie. There was a constant sound of arrows piercing into flesh and blood, and soon the horse became a hedgehog. The 2 of Yang Guo were unharmed. Yang Guo looked at Xiang's operation and opened his mouth in an O shape. Even though Mongolian horses are shorter than ordinary tall horses, they still weigh a few hundred pounds. How could she carry the vertical horse with one hand and sprint? Aunt Guo, are you too strong? Xiang smiled and casually threw the horse out, smashing down a trail of pursuers. She chuckled and said, You're talking about me. Your sword is really powerful. What's the reason behind it? Hee, that's my father's martial arts swordsmanship. Yang Guo felt a bit embarrassed. I haven't learned it yet, I just heard about its effects. With this, I can use it to launch something that can deal with these ordinary soldiers, but not with experts. From the ancient tomb sect. Xiang was surprised. Sword tomb. There may be different opinions on which male protagonist in Jin Yong's works is the best at fighting, but which male protagonist has the strongest Qing army is undoubtedly Linghu Chong. Linghu Chong, who was seriously injured and on the brink of death, had difficulty standing. Even outside the Medicine King Temple, he could stab 14 experts blind with a single sword. Liang Ting and Xiang Wentian fought black and white with over 100 experts, stabbing 8 long spears with one sword. Forging Sword Valley took the lead, killing hundreds of disciples from Mount Song and defeating the 3 great guards of Mount Song with one sword. But those with much lower strength than the users are no match for dozens or even hundreds of idle people. Let me put it this way, if Xiao Feng had known Dugujiujian at the Juxian Manor back then, over 300 people in the Juxian Manor would have been surrounded by Xiao Feng alone. As a descendant of Dugujiuxi, Yang Guo naturally wanted to learn Dugujiujian, but unfortunately Yang Guo couldn't find the sword manual at the sword tomb. However, relying on his years of swordsmanship and utilizing the performance of Dugujiujian, Yang Guo reluctantly created a set of fake Dugujiujian, which was too fake and inferior to even be displayed on the panel. Even if it's not as good as the genuine Dugujiujian, which can blind 14 experts with the dying Linghu Chong's sword, after all, Yang Guo's body can move freely and his internal power can also be partially mobilized. Most importantly, he holds the heaven-reliant sword. Yang Guo had a question in his past life. He asked Linghu Chong, who was wielding the heavenly sword, if he could defeat Zhu Beiji. The heavenly sword could even strike Zhu Beiji, and there was no problem piercing the eyes of 14 soldiers. The heavenly sword was indeed terrifying, and Yang Guo even had the strength to manually wield the dog's head after cutting off the enemy. Running dozens of miles into the mountains and forests, the cavalry could no longer pose a threat, and Yang Guo finally breathed a sigh of relief. Cough, cough, cough. Pooh. Yang Guo's internal injury was not healed yet, and he forcefully erupted, causing the injury to be affected. At this moment, the adrenaline receded and he felt pain all over his body, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Xiang simply picked up Yang Guo, abandoned his horse, and used his lightness skills to run on the steep cliffs of the mountain road. Cough, 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 cough. Yang Guo was lying in Xiang's arms talking nonsense, and Xiang almost slapped him again. Speak less recklessly, sit down, and remember with your heart. Xiang found a clean cave, put Yang Guo down, and the two sat cross-legged, reciting a scripture. Do you remember? Xiang finished reading it and asked as he looked at Yang Guo. Of course, can't you believe my father's intelligence? Yang Guo did remember that Yang Guo and Little Dragon Girl's talent was not inferior to Feng Heng and Huang Rong, let alone not remember it. Anyway, he had a panel. Big event. You have been taught by the great master and learned the 9 manual. Healing chapter. You have been instructed by the Grand Master, and the proficiency of the 9 manual. Healing chapter plus 18 has been increased to 135%. Yun Gong. Xiang extended his left hand to touch Yang Guo's right palm, and both of them simultaneously operated the healing chapter. So there's no need to take off your clothes and treat your injuries face to face. Yang Guo was quite disappointed. Little pervert, don't speak recklessly. Xiang was furious and said, I haven't even settled the accounts with you at the foot of the mountain. Tell me, how did you escape from the ancient tomb and commit so many major crimes? If you don't say it well, I'll bring you to your father and kill you with my own hands. Your father won't stop me either. No, what the hell are you doing here? If you don't hide in a mountain to avoid trouble, just go down the mountain and fuck me. Are you not hating my father's love and wanting to kill his only biological son? Yang Guo is also holding fire in his heart. Don't think that I'll forgive you just because you taught me the healing chapter. The reason why I got hurt is not all because of you, the tiger old lady. Xiang looked into Yang Guo's eyes and said, I heard in Sichuan that a lecherous thief colluded with the Tartars, sexually harassing women and slaughtering the entire family. He even dared to insult his late mother and came down the mountain to take his head. Then you go find him. Why are you killing me? Yang Guo suddenly felt something was wrong. Wait a moment, you don't think I'm that pervert, do you? What made you have this illusion? If I dare to insult Senior Huang and use you to come from Sichuan, I'll let my father kill me before I leave Shaanxi. Xiang looked at Yang Guo for a long time and suddenly felt very discouraged. But when I saw you, the nearby village. Guess what I did hiding in the mountains for? When Yang Guo mentioned this, he became very angry. When I passed by, I saw a village completely destroyed and was about to collect corpses. I didn't expect two young people in their 30s to come out, cheat, and ambush. My 16-year-old comrade, I was careless and didn't dodge. He let me ambush him. Later, he hid in the mountains to recuperate, and when his injuries healed, he met you and wanted to kill me. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. But you do speak and act. Xiang said, suddenly gaining momentum. Young Xian niece, don't think I rely on my old age to sell my old age. I have an unbreakable relationship with your father, so I still want to advise you not to be so frivolous. Yeah, that's quite rebellious, Yang Guo said with a wicked smile. I mentioned your name. My dad got over 100 swords from my mom, and he wanted to beat me up. That's when I ran out. Xiang's face turned red again. Yang Guo is proud and shy, big sister. He, fun. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. No need for cheats, how can one become a master? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. No need for cheats, how can one become a master? Yang Guo's injury is neither mild nor severe. Unlike Guo Huang and the others back then, he already had a considerable foundation in internal skills, and with Xiang, a well-maintained master-level expert, simultaneously operating the healing chapter, he recovered in less than a day. As soon as Yang Guo finished his work and opened his eyes, Xiang handed over a roasted wild goose. Has Auntie eaten it yet? Since Yang Guo discovered that Xiang was shy, he liked to tease her. Now he just took off the character Guo and called her Auntie. Every time he called, Xiang blushed. No, I've been a vegetarian for a long time, Xiang deliberately ignored him. Why do you want to become a nun? Just because my father doesn't marry you. Yang Guo knows that Xiang became a nun in a May mountain after the age of 40. Don't, if he doesn't marry you, I'll marry you. Sooner or later, it won't be enough for you to share a household registration with him. Xiang is 34 years old this year, and in ancient times, he may have become a grandmother in ordinary families, enough to call himself old age. Yang Guo traveled through time, and the mature 34-year-old imperial sister was a fatal temptation for a stinky younger brother like him. Besides, Xiang had profound internal strength and looked similar to his early 20s. With her stunning appearance and a cold and melancholic temperament, anyone who takes a stroll on 21st century streets and has fewer than 40 people chatting up can be considered as having more gay people on the street today. Do you still want to be beaten up? Xiang was both shy and angry, pulling out his heavenly sword to stab him. Wrong. Yang Guo quickly calmed down and said, let's talk about catching licentious thieves. Humph, it's all your fault for deviating from my route. How can I find it now? It's not bad if I can successfully escape back to Shu. Xiang was furious. Are you still being unreasonable? Yang Guo found that no matter what era, the old ladies didn't like to reason. Even if you didn't ask yourself clearly and started fighting, I got beaten for free. Now it's my fault, he said, can I still make you suffer in vain? Xiang glared at him and said, I remember from you that the way of heaven is to make up for what is not enough when there is more loss. You read the 9 manual that the whole Jianghu was robbing like a gossip. Yang Guo was shocked. Stop talking nonsense and memorize quickly. I've memorized it, Yang Guo blinked. Impossible. Xiang didn't believe it at all. Even her grandmother Feng Heng had to concentrate and spend a lot of time to remember the whole 9 manual. Yang Guo was still gnawing at the legs of wild geese until now. I'll recite it for you to listen to, the way of heaven. Yang Guo carried it on his back and distracted himself while looking at the panel. Laughing to death, I didn't even remember it. There's no need to use traditional memory when it comes to cheating. How can I become a great master? Name: Yang Guo. Age: 16. Skill: Old Chinese LV 75498/5600, Mongolian LV 6, 12/4800, left and right mutual combat LV 101404/infinity martial arts. Join divine skill LV 42887/6800, big event. You have been taught by the great master and learned the whole the 9 manual. The original fragmented sutras are converted into the total chapters to recalculate the level. You have been explained by the Grand Master, and the proficiency of the 9 manual plus 34 has been increased to 140%. You have learned the 9 manual, proficiency plus 11.2, round down. The original skill level of the 9 fragmented articles was merged into the total article, which made the total article jump to LV4 directly. Moreover, under the guidance of the great master Xiang, the skill level is growing rapidly. I believe that soon my major in internal skills will change from the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra to the 9 manual. Xiang is still in a daze. Aunt, is it appropriate for you to teach me the 9 manual directly? Yang Guo interrupted her confusion. Well, the Han family is all dead. What's the use of keeping several secret scripts? The 9 manual will give you a copy of it to the Yang family, so that the people who rely on the heaven sword will not have the right mind and come up with a devil-like black wind twin evil. Xiang paid no attention to this and continued to ask, did you learn the 18 dragon subduing palms? I don't even learn my father's desperate palm. This kind of martial arts that suppresses people with force is so ugly. Originally, Yang Guo began to change his mind after several times of eating humble food. But now that he has learned the whole 9 manual, it doesn't matter. Handsome is the most important thing to pursue. Who learns those crude martial arts? But Auntie, how did you achieve that turtle-style qigong with 3 points of returning energy? My dad doesn't even know it, your internal strength is even stronger than mine. That's not true. Xiang shook her head. She devoted herself to practicing for 18 years, and now her strength is only comparable to that of Guojing, Ongua, and Zhou Baodong in the past, slightly surpassing the level of the first generation's top 5 talents. However, if compared to the current Yang Guo, it is not as good. I have 3 unique internal skills, the 9 manual, the 9 Yang scripture, and my master Jinluanguisher's dragon elephant prajna skill. The combination of these 3 internal forces can produce this effect. It's appropriate to call it 3 points back to vitality. Xiang possesses 3 top-notch skills. In addition to the 12 meridians and 8 extraordinary meridians, she also cultivates 3 meridians and 7 rounds. When it comes to internal power penetrating the acupoints and meridians, no one can match her. No matter how strong other martial arts masters are, they are only able to release their palm and finger power into the air. However, if they want to store and compress the released internal power into a ball like Xiang, it is absolutely impossible. No wonder you have such a strong hand. With just one hand on your horse, you almost slapped me to death. It turns out to be the dragon elephant prajnaparamita technique. Teach me how to do it, Auntie teaches me. Yang Guo's eyes lit up. As the only son of the divine eagle heroes, he could learn too many top-notch martial arts secrets. He was not really interested in the 9 Yang manual and the dragon elephant prajnaparamita technique, but he was very interested in being able to perform the turtle sect qigong. You should be more down to earth. I don't have a complete understanding of the 9 Yang scriptures. With my own understanding, I am now calling her a 9 Yang Gong. In 2 years, I plan to establish a sect in Amei, and this skill will serve as the foundation for the establishment of the sect. Alas, if I had your memory, I wouldn't have forgotten all of it back then. Xiang seems to be very upset that he didn't learn the all 9 Yin scripture. The Dragon Elephant Prajna skill is a secret sect Dharmapala skill. Every time I practice it, the difficulty doubles. After I have achieved my internal skill, I use my deep internal power to force myself through the pass. This is the 8th level. You'd better learn the 9 Yin manual well first. Yang Guo doesn't care about that. He's afraid of cheating. Good aunt, just teach me. If you're like this, teach me these 2 martial arts, and I'll take you to kill the bandits. Do you know where that pervert is? Xiang was surprised. Try your luck, I'm not saying it. He was the one who slaughtered the village and attacked me. Before leaving, he even set fire and almost burned me to death. I can't help but avenge him. He said he wanted to go to Xiangyang before leaving. Let's go and try our luck, maybe there will be. Yang Guo knew immediately who the lecherous thief Xiang was chasing. He witnessed all the actions Xiang said with his own eyes, especially since the disciples and grandchildren of this old Taoist were also 2 lecherous thieves. It can be said that they have been passed down through the same lineage. Thinking about it this way, almost being killed and burned to death was due to the ambush of the 100 lost Taoist, being injured by Xiang and pursuing him all the way, or because of the 100 lost Taoist. If this old Taoist doesn't die, Yang Guo is not worthy of being called a descendant of the divine eagle hero. Okay, Xiang nodded and memorized 2 martial arts skills. At this point, Yang Guo's panel became Name. Yang Guo. Martial arts. 9 Yin Divine Skill LV 42887/6800 Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita Skill LV 1, 29 out of 80 MA 9 Yang Skill LV 1137/360 Major Event. You received the teachings of the Great Master and learned the MA 9 Yang Skill. You have received the teachings of your Great Master and learned the Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita technique. You have received the explanation from the Grand Master that your proficiency in MA 9 Yang skill has increased by 86%, and your learning proficiency has increased to 190%. You have received the explanation from the Great Master, and your proficiency in Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita skill has increased by 19%, and your learning proficiency has increased to 110%. You have learned the MA 9 Yang skill with a proficiency of plus 51, you have learned the Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita technique, with a proficiency of plus 10. The Dragon and Elephant Prajna skill is just like the legend. It's very easy to get started. But if you increase the score according to the index, you need more than 20,000 proficiency to reach the 10th level, and if you want to reach the 11th level, you need 40,000 proficiency, which is much higher than the 9 Yin manual and other unique skills. No wonder the Golden Will Master Tianzong is a genius who has only reached the 10th level of training. This is an unprecedented achievement in the history of esoteric Buddhism. But I'm hanging up, then it's okay. According to the panel values, reaching the 8th level equivalent to Xiang only requires 5,120 proficiency levels, not to mention other unique skills. It may be less than a MA 9 Yang Gong. Yang Guo's slight use of martial arts skills revealed that his strength had increased significantly, and he felt more transparent throughout his body. His internal power and spiritual power seemed to merge into one, so that spiritual power was not limited to his body, but could even be extended to 2 feet around his body as his internal power was released. Yang Guo estimates that this is the key to compressing the external internal forces into shape. He used his internal power to unleash his palm, and as he saw the palm power about to dissipate, his mind moved. The palm power that had originally been directly unleashed was restrained in front of his palm, and even Yang Guo felt that he could vaguely mobilize it. Yang Guo was overjoyed and hurriedly used his palms to transport power, attempting to rub these 2 internal forces together. Wave. Like a bubble bursting, Yang Guo's 2 palms had already dissipated before they could merge. It's still not possible, my skills are too shallow. Yang Guo didn't expect to be able to master the turtle sect Qigong as soon as he learned it, but it was always a good start. He thought so, but Xiang looked at him like he was looking at a monster. As soon as I finished memorizing the scriptures, you introduced these two great divine arts to me. Xiang's eyes were full of disbelief. Not to mention the 9 Yang skill, even if the entry threshold for the Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita skill was low, I thought with your talent, you could start in 3 days. I can't believe you. You're really a pervert. Do you know your martial arts talent, Brother Yang? Of course he knows. Yang Guo felt a bit homesick. The old man is jealous of his talents, jealous of my talent, so he beats me every day. Pushi. Xiang couldn't help but laugh. Yang Guo saw Xiang smile for the first time in these days, her smile blooming like spring flowers. Her big black eyes turned into 2 curved crescent moons, paired with her fragile face, making her look more delicate than a real person. Yang Guo stared blankly. What are you looking at? Oil has dripped onto your clothes. Xiang quickly stiffened his face and put on an elder-like appearance. Auntie, you still need to smile more. You look so beautiful when you smile. Nonsense. Xiang clearly didn't want to take on this conversation. Since your injury has healed, let's set off for Xiangyang now. Take your time to speak. Yang Guo stood up with a fierce expression on his face, cracking the knuckles of his fingers and emitting the unique thunder of the Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita technique. This time, I will definitely kill that unscrupulous ox nose, he said. 100 damages Taoist, danger. End of this chapter.